90 to 100 million transactions a day on BSV blockchain. Where are these transactions even coming from? In this is the video and the space you're going to want to tune into to see it till the end, because you just might find the answer. But I have a speakers panel today with some special guests, including MintBlue, as well as Kurt Wuckert Jr. And we will be going through some of these, answering potentially some of these questions. What's going on with the World Economic Forum partnering with BSV blockchain? Is enterprise adoption actually the way forward to expand this stuff? I mean, to make demand. I mean, and ultimately, I had a great show with the investor from my friend Bruce Thompson from New Zealand. Check it out. That was yesterday. It came out, so you can check that out and learn all about the actual background investing and go further on it. But today we're going to go on to the utility. What are these transactions? How are they even possible? Who's doing them? What are they coming from? Speakers panel coming straight at you from the X Space. My name's Gavin Gregory, and I will see you at the top and on the inside. What's up? It's a great day, everybody. It's going to be the 17th, Friday. We got our space today. This is going to be the Bitcoin at scale, empowered data ownership. I mean, have you ever wondered about all these transactions? We got these 90 million transactions from Bitcoin SV that are coming in right now and on a daily basis. I mean, I'm wondering where the heck they're coming from. They don't look like they're spam to me. It looks like it's some sort of a proper operation. Somebody's using them, but nobody seems to know where. We haven't heard any actual answers. So maybe we'll get some answers today. So tune into the end of this space and we'll find out more about it. Also, the partnership with the World Health Organization. I noticed a lot of objections to that, but definitely up in the air about what's going to happen up there in Switzerland if the world's going to end there in with the controllers and the powers that be that are telling us how to be healthy with all their smart doctors that they've got over there, and they don't really look so healthy when you look at them. But that's been a partnership that is happening right now with BSV Blockchain Association. So, but yeah, today's going to be the space on that. Oh, we got Kurt coming up. We got Scott 369 BSV, Miss Casey Nicole. Yeah, I see my buddy Wolfgang. Every time I go to these conferences, I always see him at the conference, and he's always there. He's the Wolfgang from Family of Wolves. This guy's cool, man. I like him. Game Tight. What's up? Yeah, Ram, Ray, Marcus, Dan. Come on in. It's a great day. Jeremy, Jack BSV. What's up, dude? Good to see you. Yeah, so this ought to be fun, man. It should be a lot of fun. How Miss Casey Nicole, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm on the road, so hopefully my Wi-Fi hangs in there for us.
Yeah. Sounds like you got some exciting announcements for me.
I do. I'm very excited to tell you about them second half of next week. So that'll be kind of the whole
we got Greg Maxwell coming in as a guest speaker. Is that it? He's gonna join. He's supporting Craig now, I heard. Yeah. He wants to he wants to support Craig. He's sick of Copa. He's backstabbing Copa now, huh? All right. Well. Oh boy. Greg is one of my subscribers on YouTube. He loves me. He loves calling me names. I could list about 15 different names that he's called me now. And I'm actually going to dedicate a video specifically to the names that Greg Maxwell calls me. So it's kind of it is what it is. I think a scammer is probably the best one. Probably the common one, scammer or anyways. So what's up, Scott? How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing awesome, man. Doing really good. Thanks for helping to set this up today. And
yeah, we've got is it Pieter in there from MintBlue in the audience? Does someone want to invite him up to speak? Team winner.
Oh yeah, team winner. Did you want to invite him up, Casey, please? Team winner. Yep. Nice. And none other than the notorious Kurt Wuckert Jr., the Bitcoin historian, my man. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Gavin? I'm doing well. Uh, Actually, yeah, I've been sick now for like 2 weeks, so I'm okay. But I've had a ear infection that is mostly cleared up, but like I cannot get the pressure back in balance in my head, so I'm a little bit imperfect, but I'll be fine.
Well, hopefully we can get you into like some sort of elucidated state and really drag the truth out of you about your real feelings because,
Yeah, I'm
I
usually pretty cagey. I'll do my best to be honest today.
Yeah, tell us the real truth this time for real, Kurt. I mean, I
Yeah,
know you're a small blocker at heart and you're
yeah.
just here because, you're a plant.
I'll say whatever the highest bidder pays me to say.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever the highest bidder pays you. There we go. That's it. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I was thinking about doing a trip down there to Miami actually with the S-Crypt team and we were going to go down there. We were talking about it. So, I mean, we were kind of considering it. There's a small blocker conference coming up at the end of the month. It's
Mhm.
just are you going to I don't know if you've thought about going, but it's expensive to go.
Yeah, I'm not going to that. Like they don't get my money.
Right.
But there is the Counterparty conference, which is sort of adjacent to it. It starts the day after. And I'll actually be speaking at that event. So that is also in Miami. I believe I'm going to be debating a gentleman by the name of Gabe Higgins, who is some kind of OG small blocker guy who also lives in Florida. So I'll be on stage taking questions from Tatiana Moroz, who's another like old school Bitcoiner from down here. So if anybody wants to come to the Counterparty event, it should be a good one. I'll be on stage on Sunday.
Ah, nice. So we got a rebuttal event to the pump,
Yes.
to the price, to the whatever they're going to be talking about there, which is really usually not too exciting in my events. I mean there isn't too many business opportunities. It's just buy and hold, buy and hold, buy and hold.
Yeah, it's like going to a religious revival. Like
Yeah.
you go get baptized by by what's his Max Kaiser. He can go bless bless you straight to hell. Basically, is the way I see it. But yeah, it's one of those things. But what's cool, the event that I'm speaking at is actually put on by the event is called Counterparty, but it's actually put on by the company Counterparty, which created the very first token protocol on Bitcoin, circa it's got to be 2014 or 15. Very similar to like run tokens, like in that they are an op return token that worked in Bitcoin way back in the day. And they were the first token protocol to get murdered from the network, pretty specifically by another Floridian, Luke Dash Jr., who I can't remember exactly the details, but basically cut the op return size by default down by just enough to make sure that Counterparty tokens could no longer fit, and basically killed their whole company. But they were on the cusp of like literally bringing like Magic the Gathering and other things, like specifically licensed actual big time playing card games onto Bitcoin about 10 years ago now. And Luke Dash Jr. Went and cut all that off at the knees. So they're kind of an interesting group. I don't know that they're big blockers per se at this point, but they are definitely people that want to see Bitcoin be useful, and so that's part of the reason why I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I call these people enemies of the peer-to-peer Bitcoin. So and I'm waiting.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen the statute or the hero post of Heroes of Bitcoin of Luke Dash Jr. I think I've already seen that one. I saw the Greg Maxwell Heroes of Bitcoin, post, which is just great. I love seeing him, highlighted up on a stage like that. He's done such a good job.
If you work for the CIA and the NSA long enough, someone will give you a trophy for fighting for freedom. I promise.
He looks so happy too. He really does.
Yeah,
someone I inspire to be.
He's a swell guy.
Yeah. Gosh, he looks great. Yeah. So Did you want to? Did you? I know I haven't met. Is it Peter Kurt? Have you? I think you met him on your show a few times, right? Did you
Peter's
wanna,
great.
yeah,
Peter, yeah, I would love to introduce him.
yeah.
Frankly,
Please.
Peter Dendoven. He's a Belgian Bitcoin developer. One of the key people running a real business that uses Bitcoin for what it was meant to be used for. Also, quite a nice guy. He's very funny and knows a whole lot of real stuff about the protocol. So he's a killer dev. He's an entrepreneur and not one of those guys that just sits around chit chatting. Although he is very good to chit chat with. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Nice. All right. Well, cool. Nice to have you on and meet you for the first time, Peter. My name's Gavin. How you doing, buddy?
Nice to meet you too. I'm doing very well. It's
Awesome.
Friday, so looking forward to the weekend. And thanks for the great introduction, Kurt.
For sure, brother.
Yeah, and Scott also is the one who took the initiative of reaching out to you. So I'll yield to Scott if you have anything that you wanted to introduce Scott or start with.
Well, no, it was more a case of, I enjoy watching the commentary back and forward between people on the debates about Bitcoin, and it was great to see Peter sort of really schooling people. I believe there was a post where somebody was saying, "Oh, all of these transactions on the network, they're all fake. Everything's fake. It's just Calvin running it up to prove something." And Peter actually interjected and went, "Oh, well, give me an example. What's a fake transaction?" And the guy sort of posted a random one, and people's like, "Oh, well, actually, my team, we did that. That's part of what we're doing. It's not a transaction of money; it's a transaction of data. And if you knew how op return functioned and you knew how Bitcoin should be working, then you'd know what an op return is." And it just sort of was a great moment for me, at least, to see people who are actually involved within the behind the scenes industry actually sort of saying, "Well, no, this isn't fake. This is real world utility, real world usage." And I just thought it'd be great to get him up to sort of find out what MintBlue is, and to sort of find out, does he know where some of these transactions are coming from? What sort of customers are MintBlue working with? I know they was working with the tax office in the Netherlands, and so seems like there's a lot of different exciting bits of information that I'm sure the rest of the community would love to know about. So yeah, just fanboying for BSV basically, and I love seeing people doing real world utility. So wanted him to come along, invite him along, and hear from him, hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
All right, thank you, Scott. So yeah, let's hear more about you, Peter. For those who, I saw the CoinGeek stuff, but I've got to try to take it down to talk to me like a boomer that is not tech wise. So if you could kind of just maybe tell me a little bit more about what you're up to and what MintBlue is, maybe just start with like your story.
Yeah, it's been a long ride in Bitcoin. I mean, I first heard of Bitcoin 12 years ago from our current CTO, which is a good friend of mine as well. We were just in a bar and he was telling me, "Well, you gotta look at this thing. It's money, it's digital, it's peer-to-peer." And I was like, "Yeah, this will never work." But then a few months in, I started researching it. In the first few years went like that. I didn't really know what it was. I just, as a techie, because I've always been full stack developer, tech nerd. I was just researching what it was, how it worked, learned a whole lot about economy and money because I didn't know any of those things. And then at some point, people started asking me, "Well, you're into Bitcoin, right? We could use some help trying to figure things out, mostly from a business standpoint." We just started. We just thought, well, let's start a company. I think this was 2015 or 16. We started a company called Legit, which did R&D in consultancy, and we worked with some government organizations. We did some development stuff, worked with Unisat as well. a whole bunch of projects. And over the years, we kind of realized, well, a lot of the work here that we do is repetitive, and so let's productize that. And that's basically where the idea of MintBlue came from. And we joined the hackathon, the CoinGeek hackathon. Became third, and well, we won a bit of money, so we used that to build up a business. Landed the first enterprise client, Visma, in invoicing. It's a case about securing invoices and making sure people don't change them or change bank accounts and stuff like that. And well, that was the start of MintBlue basically. And from there on, we really built out the whole suite of infrastructure. Really, it's a very broadly applicable infrastructure that just helps developers to very easily work with anything Bitcoin related. You can set up transaction streams and do business logic on top of that, simply to say. But it can work in all kinds of industries. And so we had to really nail down where's the demand coming from. And so currently we're focusing on three specific pillars, all under, you could say, traceable compliance data collection. We're doing that for VIDA, which is VAT in a digital age. It's all about automating and digitizing taxes. The vision there is to go towards a system where you get real-time on a per transaction basis VAT and fully automated returns of VAT if you're a business, etc., etc. And this ties into the invoicing case as well, because then businesses can do fully automated VAT reporting through their invoicing platform. The other one is digital product passports. By 2030, every product in the European Union will have to have a digital product passport which says, well, this is the material that's in here. These are the end-of-life instructions to recycle. It got transported this way, etc. But that's a huge thing, because it starts, it starts in France now. Next year, it rolls out to the rest of Europe for fashion and batteries. And you get automotive. There's a whole bunch of industries that, well, are phased in. But by 2030, literally every product in the EU needs to have a digital product passport with all of that information. And companies are really struggling to collect the data and to present it to consumers. And then the third one is Scope 3 emission reporting, which is essentially large companies need to report on the carbon emissions that other supply chain partners did while servicing them. And so we have a way to collect that data, keep it private, but share it with value chain partners and then report it to the regulator. And that's kind of what we focus on right now.
All right, so you talked about like three separate parts here, three separate ventures. It sounds like that are those ventures that you're involved in with the passport?
No, it's all through MintBlue. MintBlue is servicing these, but we partner with other organizations that have a footprint in a certain industry. So we partnered with the tax office and the Chamber of Commerce for the tax automation in Visma, which is a large automation provider. And then with digital product passports, we're partnering with a bunch of consultancy and digital innovation firms that already service the ERP and PIM systems that these retailers use. And then for emission reporting, we partnered with a logistic platform that is tracking shipments already. And they had this new needs to collect data around carbon emissions, so partnered with them as well. And so each of these partnerships are done through MintBlue, and they're commercialized through the partners themselves, who often have a couple of hundred clients that are in need of these kinds of solutions.
Okay, when you're let's say that when you're selling let's say I don't know if it's a passport office or whoever, and you're trying to explain the value add and say, well, why is this going to save them money or increase their efficiency? What is the value add for them that is just absolutely game changing?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a combination of what BSV provides in terms of traceability and immutability. Those are two key factors. and the scale and the cost, of course, of BSV. But then we have that R infrastructure on top, which basically allows you to have your own key vaults where you can manage your own data. So you essentially get your own data vault, which is cryptographically protected, and each update that happens on the data is traced over BSV. And so the key thing there that separates us from ERP and PIM solutions that offer modules that kind of try to do the same thing is that it's a whole lot cheaper. It's not so much that the big companies have a problem here, because they can just pay, well, here's $500,000 and they'll solve their compliance challenges. But there's so many SMEs and enterprises as well that have very tight margins and just can't pay for these kind of software systems. And then again, also, it's the same old problem. These software systems that these retailers and others use are mostly 20, 30 years old, and they aren't designed to facilitate flexible data management for these new data needs. And also, it doesn't have like a time-based aspect. So if you look at, for example, product passports, oftentimes you have, like in fashion, you have these generic t-shirts, and these product lines, they span over like years that they sell the same product. But sometimes these products are made in Bangladesh, another time it's in India. It changes, and that also changes, and that also can change like material compositions, because one producer produces it slightly different to another producer. Now, the thing is that in 10 years, you need to be able to prove that, well, at this point in time, these t-shirts had these material compositions, and there's basically no other system that can facilitate it as far as we've seen.
All right, besides
Yeah,
BSV. Go ahead, Scott.
That can also sort of second. There was an article I was reading the other day about how big sort of high street designers go into China and South Korea to have products made over there, and because it's cheaper for the factories over there, they send it to North Korea, have it all made in North Korea, and then send it back, just so that they're sort of circumventing sanctions and things like that. So obviously that product passport you're talking about there is helping people know from sort of production to end sale exactly where their products are coming from, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the idea, of course. Now you can always lie and upload fake data, but the thing is that everything is traced here and immutably stored forever. So if you do that kind of thing, you leave the proof of your fraud. It's also connected to digital identity systems, which are becoming legal now in the EU at least. And so you can know that this person with a mandate for that company lied in these compliance data, and you can prove it in 10 years still. So it helps making it accountable.
Yeah, amazing, really good. And is that also linking to the? I've got the post here, which you were saying. You said your guess is wrong. This text was made through our infrastructure and contains location tracking of a vessel for CSRD reporting. What exactly is CRSD reporting? And when you say vessel, do you mean like a physical ship?
Yeah, it's a physical ship. We're tracking about 300 to 500 ships a day. And the CSRD reporting it stands for Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and it's an EU piece of legislation that basically enforces large companies to report on their carbon emissions. It can be pro or against that kind of stuff, but that's a political thing. What we do is just facilitate the needs that these companies have. And so, yeah, this particular transaction was quite funny, because they're like, yeah, this is fake. Look at this. It doesn't even have a payment. Well, look at what's inside of the transaction. And I know this because I recognize these transactions because, well, it's this kind of payload size. It's done on that time. But we can't even see the content of those transactions. Well, I can walk over here to the other office and ask the ones who made the transaction to see it, because they have the keys. But that's one of the big benefits as well from MintBlue stand for using MintBlue, is that even though we facilitate your data exchange and your data collection and your traceability and all that, you're not dependent on us, or you don't have to disclose any information to us. It's all handled in your own digitally cryptographically protected data vaults. And so we're like an ISP to the internet, but then for blockchain, and you do your thing, and we facilitate that it can happen securely. And you're never going to have a vendor login either, because you can just go to another service provider who facilitates the same thing for you.
So Peter, on these transactions, we've been seeing this chart going around. They're saying there's 90 million transactions going in, and it's most of the transactions over all the blockchains. Can you shed some light on that? I mean, you've talked a little bit about how they're not fake, but I mean, is that just, what are these transactions? All these 90 million transactions? You know where they're coming from?
No, I don't. I know where our transactions are coming from, and it's a small part of those 90 million. So I'm not sure about the 90 million ones. I know what we're doing, and all of that is not fake. Everything that is generated through our platform is paid for by actual clients solving a need. I'm guessing there's a lot of testing and a lot of proof of concepting that's being done here, but that's not to say that it's fake or that it's not valuable. I mean, back in the day, we did back in the day, that was a world record. I think it's 2 or 3 years ago, where we did 55 million transactions in a day. And it's funny that we're doing twice of that now each day. But that helped us as well as a PR story, right? We were selling these blockchain solutions we were pitching them at scales that nobody believed that actually was possible. And so if you empirically prove that, it lands you conversations and it gets you into rooms where you wouldn't get if you don't prove it.
All right. So it sounds like you're not 100% sure. Go ahead, Scott.
I just wanted to chime in on these. So we don't know what they are, but a good chunk of them have been utilizing the Gorilla Pool ARC endpoint to the point where we had to actually spin up another couple of backups and things to make sure everything was staying up for general use. So whoever they are, didn't reach out to us, didn't need to, and they're just using the public endpoint and sending stuff in. So it's we've done a little bit of looking at it, and it's Bitcoin is private, basically. It's a good example, in my opinion, of showing that, like, hey, you know what? If you just manage your keys well, nobody can know what it is you're doing. So I don't know who's doing what, or if they're maybe they're making $1 million a transaction on some other opportunity that they're doing, or maybe not. So, but it's I would guess that if it was the the usual suspects, that they'd be using Tal, and they're not. They're using Gorilla Pool, and they didn't even have to reach out or ask us for help or anything. So it's kind of a cool organic organic something. Yeah, I don't know what they're for, but it is what it is.
Peter, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's the beauty of Bitcoin. I mean, it's all private, right? And so you can do what you want on the chain, and if you're paying fees, that's just fine.
Yeah, sounds like they're all paying fees for it. So okay, Scott.
No, it's just I'm interested in this sort of the growth of transactions, and on a regular, is it sort of MintBlue has a large amount of transactions when you have a new client come into it? Is it something you say about the vessels, and you have like 500 different vessels or so? Is each one of those vessels doing multiple points across the Atlantic and reporting that, or is it like when it's unloaded, when it's loaded? Can you see a sort of progression of tax rates over the next year, say, for example? Could you say, oh, well, we're doing 1 million a day now, but within 2 years, if we continue as projected, we're going to be doing 10 million? Do you see a sort of a growth like that, or is it just new customers that you need?
Yeah, both. I mean, it's hard to predict the actual growth. If you're looking at the vessels, yeah, if we're tracking 500 vessels, it's on arrivals that they trigger transactions. So they come into a port, and then it will log basically the GPS locations from their departure and their arrival. It will log which kind of fuel was used, which kind of vessel it was, all that information that's bounded by a single transaction. But then it connects to another partner that has actions triggered in their own existing platform when these kind of transactions happen. And then they get that information, they can unlock it. It's because the maker of the creator of the transaction has a way to share these specific values to this other company. And they can then do a calculation for estimating what carbon emissions were involved with that particular transaction. And they then log the outcome of that. So you have the input and the output in the same provenance trail. So that's a different transaction, but you can trace it, and then you can see that it wasn't faked after the fact. It was in accordance to the regulations that are there for specific calculations. And well, once logged, there can be another step involved as well, depending on the settings of the client, which are mostly freight forwarders, because they provide that information further on to their clients. They can choose to immediately inset the carbon that was emitted. So there's a nature restoration company that has the same thing running in their infrastructure. When a transaction happens that has a certain calculation in there, that can be shared with the nature restoration company, and they then see, well, these emissions were involved in this trajectory, and now we're going to plant trees that offset those emissions. And that's another transaction. So you have 2 to 3 transactions per vessel that arrives. And this is scaling up. It's running in it's live for certain customers. There will be more customers coming on there. Now, the same solution can be applied in any kind of transport or logistics scenario. So we expect a whole lot more there. We're talking with companies that have more than 50,000 employees that are still struggling to comply with these regulations, that are doing spreadsheets to collect all of that information. And so they have very big challenges to scale these kind of things. So I expect that same solution to bring in a whole lot more transaction volume over the coming years. And the same thing for digital product passports. If you think how many products are being sold in the European Union, it's massive. In the coming 5 years, all of those will have to have digital product passports, which basically no one can facilitate at this kind of scale. And so I believe a big chunk of that to be provided over BSV. And then you can start counting. I have no idea how many products there are in the European Union. I'm sure it's massive. And then still you need to make transactions that have specific data points. So you have one for creating a product line, you have one for shipping, you have one for the material compositions, you have each of those supply chain actions are different transactions that are collected in there. So that alone is going to be massive.
Yeah, great. You literally answered that at the end point there. I was going to say, what about lorries and personal vehicles and sort of ferries and public transport rather than vessel transport? So that was great. Thank you. So yeah, a product from being created to being used by a consumer could have anywhere up to 20, 30 different data points along the chain of production, then using this product passport, so to speak. So you know its quality from day one to usage, right?
Mm-hmm. And it also enables a whole lot of new business models, because you can do resale rights, you can do loyalty systems on top. I expect the transaction volume per product to blow up as well, because you can do all kinds of additional value adds. The cool thing here is that it's a step where you combine the physical and the digital worlds. And so who knows what companies are going to do with this. You can do all kinds of digital perks while selling physical products.
Yeah, and also efficientize the actual original business by supplying needs from secondary businesses. Like you said, let's say a port has, I don't know, as I know nothing about shipping, but let's say a port comes in and the 90% of the ships are diesel. Well, it would be advantageous to have diesel suppliers and things like that at that port, because you know exactly the data of what's needed and what's not needed. So yeah, I can see a load of secondary businesses sort of being given real on the ground data and how to implement that data with secondary support businesses. So yeah, it seems really exciting to me.
Let me ask a question here. Okay, so Kurt, you're talking about we got this small blocker convention coming up at the end of the month, and you're going to do a counter convention to that, or counter, appearance of that. So with what we're talking about here today, it seems to be just the opposite of everything else I'm seeing on X about how the price is going to go up for BTC, and you're talking about how transactions are going to go up, or are going up, or went up. So I guess maybe Kurt, can you comment on that, like on what the freaking difference is here, and like, or maybe or how they're actually combined, or it's just a different narrative than I think what people are used to hearing. The transactions are going up.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, if you look at Bitcoin over the last 10 years, it went from, hey, wow, cool, I bought a hot dog or coffee with my Bitcoin, and that was a cool thing, and everybody was proud of themselves, and that was the kind of thing where people used to cheer. I can tell you, going to meetups and stuff in like 2014 and 15, like we were trying to get the local bars to accept Bitcoin as money, and there were lots of things like that going on. Like that was the narrative, and the fact that changed, and changed really quickly, by the way, like within a year or two, all of a sudden, like you had almost everybody in Bitcoin was like, why would you ever spend your Bitcoin, man? Like basically, as soon as the price went up really big in 2014, people realized like, oh shoot, that beer I bought for $5 is worth $50 now, and and I get that. That's a bit of an opportunity cost. But then, it does it again. Bitcoin in 2014 went to like $1,000 and changed a lot of people's lives. But then in 2017, it went up to $20,000 for the first time. And, now you start getting people who are saying like, whoa, okay, every Bitcoin I've ever spent has turned into a huge opportunity cost. And, so then it became very easy to turn the narrative into, hey man, don't overspend your coins. Just put them in cold storage. Just hodl, and all of that. And then by virtue of anything that is in an adoption phase, at any given point, most of the people that are involved in the thing are pretty new. Like they don't know what happened 2 or 3 years ago. And so now, being in 2025, the majority of people that are interested in Bitcoin, and like these are people that have shown up in the last 2 or 3 years. These are people that got in because they saw Michael Saylor talk about it on, CNBC or something. And, they're trying to take that opportunity and to say like, hey, did you know that Bitcoin is capable of 1 million transactions a second, or any of this kind of stuff? They look at you cross-eyed, because it's like, no. All of the people that I have ever heard talk about Bitcoin have told me that it is, it's a store of value. I should get the IBIT ETF, or I should buy MicroStrategy shares or whatever. If I'm uncomfortable with cold storage, I could just buy MicroStrategy or whatever. So you get this narrative, and it doesn't take very long to change people's minds about a whole bunch of stuff. If you can just fix the narrative and keep repeating the narrative forever. We see this also with all kinds of things. Like look at the way they teach World War II in the U.S. versus how they teach it in Russia, for example. Like those are very different things, because they come from a very different historical worldview, and now 70 plus years of propaganda and social engineering and all these other things. So when we talk about Bitcoin now, when you talk about the value of transactions, you have to explain why frictionless payments matter, right? Like most people don't realize why you need a replacement for Swift or Fedwire or Venmo or PayPal or Cash App. But when Bitcoin was created, like Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, all these things, they barely existed. PayPal was there, but it was not very good. It was not very efficient circa 2008 and 9. had like, and probably still has about a $5 minimum payment and some of these other things, but because of the Bitcoin paradigm, and really you got to look at who invested in Bitcoin and stuff too, to say like, okay, hey, micro payments and things are actually a useful use case. And so the banks and payment companies have created all kinds of things that kind of muddy the water on why payments are necessary. Why are lots of frictionless payments a good thing? Well, that's what commerce is based on. If you can reduce the friction of business, well, then you can increase the velocity of trade. And increasing the velocity of trade is something that creates all kinds of spillover benefits for your economy and your culture and all kinds of other things. Like these are the things that make the West great, is that for about 1,000 years now, the entirety of the Western Hemisphere has focused on making information easier to distribute and copy and send around to people. And that information includes money. Money is just a different kind of information. And that for whatever reason, they've been able to stop that narrative in less than 10 years, to get everybody to think that slowing down the velocity of money is fundamentally a valuable thing. And you know what, these conversations about like the Bitcoin strategic reserve and some of this other crap that's going on now, I think all of it just kind of feeds into this notion that we can all do nothing and get rich because of it. And for a lot of people, that's been the case really since the COVID pandemic stuff. A lot of people accidentally made a lot of money, whether they did it in stocks or they did it by accident in meme coins, or whether they got into Bitcoin. Like all of these things have made people accidentally wealthy, which is why we see the spillover consequence of, go to any restaurant and everybody's got a sign on the door being like, hey, please, we really need to hire like busboys and servers. And like people don't want to work entry-level jobs anymore because they look at work as an opportunity cost now, because you're just making money doing nothing because you bought the right stocks or coins or tokens or memes or whatever. And so we have a problem. We have an education problem. We have a culture problem. And, this is why, as much as I would like to just focus on entrepreneurship, like building my business, building infrastructure and all these things, I spend a lot of time on educational content to just so, if somebody Googles like, hey, is Bitcoin for payments, that, maybe my articles or my videos or something comes up where there's somebody explaining why, hey, yeah, saving is good. I'm not anti-saving. I'm not anti-investment, but somebody's got to do the business. Like you have to have trade that is occurring, and low friction trade is ultimately a good thing. So I don't know if I answered your question. I guess I kind of forgot what the original question was.
Well, it was about really you to take it back home. You talked about the velocity of money being not. So the narrative has been changed that the velocity of money doesn't matter anymore. In fact, you can just do nothing and get rich nowadays. So it's kind of changed the narrative. And so if anyone has like it sounds like people who have a little bit of a critical thinking mind, they can see that narrative is false, that you do nothing and you get rich. We know that's just maybe it's a short-term thing. You might get lucky and roll the dice, but if you weren't there early and you didn't buy in first, then now it's like, okay, well, let's change the narrative to like, okay, the velocity of money does matter, and that's where the real opportunity is. Sounds like.
Well, and that actually just shows how broken the money is. Like the only reason, truly, the only reason that any of this is happening at all is because of the funny money. It's games going on with the central bank. So the central bank completely creates these kinds of booms where, okay, interest rates are functionally zero for a long time. So money is basically free to borrow. When money's free to borrow, you can grow all kinds of things artificially and arbitrarily. This is what I think the last time we spoke, Gavin, we talked quite a bit about this, that, companies like Uber, super disruptive, great idea, right? And the problem is that on the books, the company can't actually figure out how to make money, but they grow their stock value because, well, the stock keeps going up because people keep investing in the idea. But the business itself, that business would not exist in a world where we had like 10% interest rates. And I'm not saying the interest rate should be 10%, but they might be. I mean, they might should be 20%. But ultimately, that's a decision that needs to be made by the people lending the money, not the central bank. But ultimately, a company like Uber wouldn't exist in a scenario where there was not extremely low interest rates, and then venture capitalists basically taking advantage of that and just keep pushing the ball into the next play. Okay, we're getting our series C, series D, etc. And just making this whole thing go around. Now, Uber is actually a good idea. It's not a bad concept, but they cannot figure out how to make money. But they persist anyways because of the sickness of the dollar. Essentially, sort of perpetuates these models that otherwise would require you to think more shrewdly. And so, we're living in a fake world. We're living in a bubble, and frankly, this bubble is a lot bigger than it should have been. Like, we really are overdue for a pretty serious economic correction. And at some point, all this stuff, the people that are artificially wealthy, well, that artificiality will catch up at some point. I don't know when, but eventually there needs to be a contraction on this stuff. Like, the S&P 500 cannot just go up forever. They're not producing more with less. They're actually producing less with more. And that's indicative of ultimately, not efficiency. It's a lack of efficiency, but it's the way that it's accounted for is in fundamentally bad money. And it's allowed us to become extremely lazy. Like, there's no, it's no surprise that, during the century where people got the fattest and started the most wars, also got the richest, but also somehow got the like, how do we become richer than ever before while also being lazy and fat, but somehow also fighting war? Like, just all these things, they don't make any sense, right? So it's like, imagine being conquered by the Mongols, except for the Mongols were just like sitting on couches and directing robots or whatever to go conquer land. Like, that's not how the world works for a very long time. It can work that way in small steps, but if anything that is holding up the sort of paper pyramid collapses, the whole thing collapses. And that's my real fear. Is that, hey man, we need people to be entrepreneurs. We need people to take real risks and then make real profits, by serving real customer need. It can't just be, this perpetual hot potato of value getting passed around forever. And, so I'm very worried about the future because of, it just seems to continue to compound on itself. And yeah. So that's my take on it.
Share this space, everybody. Please retweet it, repost, and comment. Share anything with Casey, or so she can put it in the nest if she knows how to do that. And there's a little link I just posted there about, or she's going to share about the EU data digital product passport, advancing transparency and sustainability. It looks like it's right in harmony with what MintBlue is doing. So, hands up with Abo Mac. Let's go over to you, buddy. How you doing? Good morning.
Hey, how are you, Gavin? Thanks for hosting. I have three questions for team and one question for Kurt. If team wants to entertain the questions, please let me know.
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first question is, what's the biggest like bottleneck you have in your business? The second question is, what's stopping you from scaling? And the third question is, are you willing to open your wallet to pay for scale? Those are the three questions. If you want to answer the first one, we just
biggest bottleneck. You want to start with that, Peter?
Sorry, got a bit distracted here. But the biggest bottleneck to scale MintBlue?
No, not to scale. The biggest bottleneck in your business, from your perspective, not a scale issue.
Well, I don't. I think there's more demand than we can handle now. So it's having the liquidity to have enough people to deliver to customers. If that makes sense.
I mean, if you can expand, that would be lovely. Like, there's 2 points in your answer. If you can expand on those, please.
Yeah. So when you service customers, you need to have people that you pay to service those customers, and you gotta pay those people before you turn revenue from those customers. And so there's just constraints in time and effort that you can do with the money that you have, and having people are very illiquid in nature, so it's very hard to hire good people, and it's expensive to hire good people, and so.
Great. Can I
Uh,
stop you there for a second? I just want to
mhm.
expand on that. What kind of employees are you looking for? What are you looking? What kind of people? What technicalities? Like the devs, sales? What specific?
Oh,
what kind of people are you looking for?
not necessarily devs now. It's more sales and commercial profiles, but like a little bit technical, like business analysts, stuff like that. So people who understand a bit, well, enough of the technology to be able to make implementations or analysis
So you're waiting,
on certain
so you're
case.
ready to open your wallet for these types of people? What are you paying? I'm just curious, like what do you have in mind? Like you need one or you need a few? Is that like one person, this is where you need? Do you need other jobs to be filled or this is the only one you have?
No, there's more. I think we have some online. I'm not sure which exact profiles are open right now. But that's the line of the business that we need to scale up. But it's hard to do so because, well, when you open your wallet, of course, we pay our employees well.
Sure.
But it's not like we have the funds to go all out here and say let's hire 50 people, and it just doesn't work that way. So it needs to scale up in a reasonable pace alongside the business.
Great. And if people want to apply, where would they go for that, Peter?
I think we have careers.meanblue.com.
MintBlue.com.
Let me verify. Careers.meanblue.com.
Careers. Okay.
Well, I think.
All right. Nice.
Yeah. So currently, but we'll see more job openings coming over the coming months as well. It's a bit outdated. You can also always do an open application as well.
Are these remote jobs or like local jobs, physical jobs?
It depends. If you're looking at the senior operation manager role, that should be local. An open application, well, it depends on the role. Developers can work from anywhere, or more technical profiles, but a lot of these are preferred to be local. If you talk with customers, it's a different game if you're in the room than at the other side of the world. So for technical profiles, doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm getting
much, but for sales and operations.
Okay, is anybody else getting that feedback, or is that
Yeah,
just...
I'm saying
Yeah.
for me. Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
the team
me
is
too.
glitching a little.
Okay,
but
Peter. So we
it's fine.
got a little bit of a technical issue on your mic on your end. So maybe you could reboot and come and fix that, and let's go on over to Kurt to respond if you have any comments or questions from Abo Mac. Kurt, about what he said.
Yeah, I mean, we have a similar situation. The problem with Gorilla Pool in specific is that the mining industry is always very hot or very cold. Like it is, if it's not profitable to mine, nobody wants to buy anything, and so we're skeleton crew. And the second prices pop up, it's like all of a sudden business goes from like 2-3 customers a week to we'll literally have hundreds of people that we need to follow up with. And so and that kind of pivot happens inside of a week because it largely depends on profitability, which largely depends on price. So just whenever it was 2 months ago or so, when the BTC price popped up, all of a sudden we just get like leads out the wazoo for people who are like, hey, I want to mine, I want to do this, can we get going ASAP, that kind of thing. And so for us hiring, we always have to have kind of a corral of people who understand the mining industry well enough to sort of consult on it and do basics. And then, but when it's cold, like these are people, we prefer people that have a couple streams of income, so these are people that are, freelancers or, people that are devs. Devs work pretty well because they're good at being remote and, taking on work in waves and that kind of thing. But hiring hiring is a big struggle for us. So that's it's a complicated one.
Nice, thank you. Abo Mac, did you have any follow up to that? Your hand's still up.
Oh, sorry, no, hands should be down, but yeah, I do have some follow-up questions to team. His name is your
Peter.
name is Peter, right? Okay, thanks, Gavin.
Peter, yeah. Is this better, by the way?
Yeah, much better.
Nice. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's hold that for a moment, if we could, Abo Mac. Let's see. Yeah, I wanted to just kind of circle back around and see if see kind of where we're at. We're at about almost about 5 minutes to the top of the hour. So I see Shatoshi's in the crowd now. We got J Paps and a bunch of other people have joined in. So be sure to share the space, like it. Get anything about you want to share with Casey and the Nest if you want to get it out there. So, but yeah, it sounds like you're really expanding your business, Peter, and things are taking off. So Scott, did you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I wanted to obviously I saw the working with the tax office, and I that was a pilot, and I saw that there was some rave reviews from that, and I was just wondering, sort of, is this something that's going to just be localized to that single tax office, or is this something that uh other people are looking to expand, or other municipals, rather than tax, are looking to expand upon? Was that a government thing or was that a private thing? Because of that was very interesting to me, and it also, when I posted about that, it seemed like it was quite interesting to a lot of people and how that could potentially expand in the future.
Hmm. Yeah, it is a government thing. It is the tax office of the Netherlands that we're working with, and it's a big project. We started it last year with doing research. That was a research phase where we looked at threats, the possibilities, the technical choices. So, what kind of change do you need to make? Who are the stakeholders? All that kind of stuff. You can read it, by the way. It's a 72-page report which you can download from the Dutch government's website. I can share a link at some point, but so that was last year, and now we're moving into the pilot phase with a phase one where it's the goal here in this quarter is to have an implementation where you log your audit trail of your business invoices, and you share certain data fields with the tax office on a real-time basis. Some of it's protected with zero knowledge. So you share some data, you prove some compliance without sharing all of that data. But that's what we're building this quarter. It will be tested. So it's a pilot implementation, but it's also to create, how do you say that in English? We need to have more support from the government itself. It's an experimental phase now with a great vision. It's with the innovation department of the tax office. But the goal is here to roll it out over the next coming years. And there are some obligations from the EU that align with this. I think the VIDA regulations are coming into effect by 2030, and the EU is asking governments to prepare for that. So if we do that well, we will scale it out to other tax offices as well. We are together with the tax office in the Netherlands in contact with I don't know, like 8 other tax offices in other parts of the world. And so if we do it well, we'll scale it out.
So that's something that obviously the Netherlands is taking the primary on, and then that could be implemented across the entirety of the European Union. Or is that something that's going, when you say 8 other tax offices, is that something that's also outside of the European Union as well?
Yeah, it's also outside of the European Union. It's across the world, but I think mention that those are the most innovative ones. Not every country is like, yeah, let's be a trailblazer. Most of them will want to look at what others are doing and then copy what is successful. And it's not just the European Union. You can see it internationally. There's an initiative called OECD, and it's about, well, they call it Taxes 3.0, and everything there. Well, it's got like, I think, 40 countries in that alliance, and everything there is moving towards the same thing of VAT at a transactional basis.
Sure, where you guys are from, there is probably the government's probably totally fair and honest and open and transparent. But out here where I'm from, we have a lot of problem with corruption, and so I'm just wondering how this tax thing might maybe help or be beneficial for like the U.S. With
Mhm.
taxes.
Well, in any case, the Department of Government Efficiency could use such a thing quite well because they can gain insight in how taxes are spent. But I think personally that the biggest change here is that you eventually will be able to monitor how your taxes are spent as a citizen. So you pay VAT on your coffee and you can see, well, this amount of money just went to education or to building roads, and then people will start to think, if they see my money is getting spent here, then they will start to think and keep politicians accountable for it. Now it's so opaque that no one really knows what's happening. It's like it's their free money, and so it's the accountability and the insight that you can get into those value streams.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. Like we actually do know. I mean, according to that, what was that 80 that report in the 1980s under Reagan, they said that the taxes are not going to the government programs; they're going to offshore bankers. I mean, they did a full analysis on this
Mhm.
in Congress. So yeah, we know that it's not going to these things out here. We so at least in the U.S., it's completely screwed up. So we need
Oh, you
transparency.
don't want to know about Europe.
Well,
We're very good in making things very complicated and expensive. But
oh,
that's what governments do, right? So you just you have free money from your citizens, so you spend it on your own teams and your own overcomplicated overhead. But having that visibility into there in each transaction will change that, I think.
oh, for sure. So that's what it sounds like the value is. Well, they don't want that. That's the problem. They want to keep it secret. I mean, I guess so. It sounds like that's a value add for the people and the citizens, but these agencies,
Yeah. Mm. The government in the Netherlands is well, the tax office there is quite nice. Well, the people there are it's very good people and they want to do this. They want to give that transparency. But it's obviously not the same people that profit from these inefficiencies. They don't want it. But I think it's unavoidable.
hmm.
When some countries start to do this, it's gonna gain efficiency, and others will have to follow.
Okay, Peter, what are your thoughts on CBDCs? Have you had any looked into that or conversations about CBDCs?
Oh, controversial.
Yeah.
Um, it's fine. It's just one other way of doing fiat money, and central banks are free to deploy CBDCs, and I think they can gain efficiency as well, uh, just by digitizing cash. Now, will that be the best cash? We'll see. If you're in a digital world where everything is interoperable, let them compete. I'm sure there's going to be many CBDCs. Some are going to be more efficient than others. Some are going to inflate more than others. And then if you have this digital cash system that is not controlled by a central bank and that is less expensive to spend, and where the money supply can be inflated, well, that might just be the better choice. But you need to have the CBDCs there to even compete with. So Bitcoin as cash will only work when it's used and it's got a chicken and an egg problem. But if we're deploying CBDCs on top of Bitcoin, you essentially make it into a commodity, and therefore it could evolve into money. And then if that's the more efficient choice, then people will make that choice. So I
Hmm.
think CBDCs are a good way to bring money to Bitcoin.
Okay. I know Kurt's a big fan of CBDCs. He loves the central banks. He says, so Kurt, right?
Whoa,
I'm
whoa,
kidding. Sorry.
whoa. So, no, I mean, fundamentally, I'm not a fan of fiat currency. However, uh, we have failed to replace it, right? I remember talking to Bitcoiners a decade ago, but before things were more clearly regulated and things, saying, hey guys, like if we use Bitcoin as cash, it will get regulated like cash, it will get taxed like cash, like it becomes adopted the same way that you might you know do any gold coins or whatever, right? So I mean, you can there are neighborhoods where you can make a deal in gold, and everybody's cool with it because it's just a culture that they've created. Or like gold back dollars is something that they do in places like Wyoming and Utah. Or if you're in the gold district in Manhattan, like the jewelry stores and stuff, like they're really happy to trade in numismatics and that kind of thing. But it's about creating that culture where that's the way that people expect to do business, or they're capable of doing business. And Bitcoin, I think, really had that opportunity to do that about 10 years ago. And then the scaling war just like absolutely murdered that conceptually. And then the water got permanently muddied with like, here's Ethereum, and here's any one of a few hundred blockchains that all do kind of variants of the same thing. And then you have things like Tether and USDC that have come out and really exploded around the same time. Like they were invented a few years earlier, but they really became a big deal in like the 2017 bull run, and have only grown since. And now you get companies like Tether that are holding more U.S. debt, I think, than any other entity possibly. So now you have the world's largest and arguably most corrupt stablecoin holding U.S. national debt at a level that I think nobody else is competing with. And so all of a sudden there can become like a debt swap agreement where it's like, okay, we're gonna kind of use Tether as our own central bank, and we're gonna kind of convert Tether into a federal CBDC. Like this is acceptable for paying taxes, and all these other things. But all of these things are a consequence of our failure to get Bitcoin adopted as cash. Like if we would have just simply worked harder on that goal, or if we could have worked as a team on that goal, and I really think this is what the subterfuge of the Bitcoin Civil War really is about. And it's sort of a sad state of affairs that now people, because they only look at Bitcoin as a store of value and these kind of things, that now you get this need for a derivative asset, which is another issue, I think, with this Bitcoin strategic reserve thing that's probably coming from the Trump administration. Who knows, like maybe next week. And but the problem with all of that is, like Peter said, is it going to be good money? Is it going to be better money? I don't know. Putting it on a blockchain does give it a few interesting properties. Like you get more auditability of the supply. You can reduce its payment friction. Maybe those two things. Let's just say it's those two things, which are good. That's a net good.
If you want to know exactly when that event is going to be, like when they're going to announce that, look at the date when MSTR will announce its quarterly earnings. It should be probably after that day, if that makes sense for you.
Do you have a reason why? Like, why would that be?
Because after he went to meet Trump in Mar-a-Lago, he announced the meeting, the quarterly earnings date after the meeting. So there's a big, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have a question, two more questions for Peter, and I still haven't asked my question to Kurt. I mean, I can, like, I don't have to ask Kurt. Maybe I can ask later. I want to ask Peter a specific question. Why do you have a liquidity problem if you have excess demand? That's the question. And what do you? I mean, if that's a loaded question, maybe you can answer. Why do you have why do you have a liquidity problem?
I think Peter was saying humans are not very liquid. Like hiring, it takes time to make a person valuable. Even when you hire them, like a lot of companies expect to have an employee lose the company money for months, if not years, before they actually become a valuable member of the company.
So
that's just the way that I heard it.
Right?
Anyways,
it's not a question of money. I mean, Peter can answer it. I mean,
Peter. Well, it's partly a question of money. If you have more money, then you can hire more people, and then you're getting up to speed faster. But it's more of a people problem. It is very hard. It's been the hardest part of running MintBlue, really, to hire good people. You don't know beforehand anyway, whether your hire is any good. You can make some assumptions, and you can, well, we're getting better at it, but that's been really tough to get good profiles, and you realize after a while that you sometimes make mistakes as well. And then you gotta replace people. It costs a whole lot of money. It costs a whole lot of time and effort. And then if you look at the technology we're working with as well, there's quite the learning curve to get them up to speed as well. It's been quite hard on the technical team as well, but I feel like we have a very good technical team now. So that we got that somewhat in order.
So your business has an open wallet for good people to hire. Yes, you're willing to pay for good talent. Do I get the picture correctly? Okay. And the last question, I mean, maybe this is more a lucrative question for you and anyone who's listening, maybe even one who's listening, or anyone else who, like, likes to go talk to businesses. Like, your supply chain management, right? So do you have a system for someone who brings in business for you, like a commission based or like a percentage based, for someone to be motivated to get you business, to go out on a limb outside in the real world, get you like a huge client so you can have liquidity, you can hire more people? What is the, like, the do you have some sort of like incentive for people or anyone, like, just to go out and say, hey, you know what, here's Peter, let me connect you with Peter, and here's the contact. You know what I mean? Like a real customer that, like, will drive your business with more liquidity, more, like, it'll give you more business. Like, what's that? You have any incentives for people here that are listening? Because everyone, I'm sure, like myself, I can speak for myself, and maybe for one, because he just goes out and talks to businesses. I don't know about the rest of the people here. I can't speak on them. That's a thumbs up, yeah. So, like, do you have an incentive system for me and for anyone else who talks to like huge businesses? So, like, we can say, hey, you know what, here's Peter's contact, talk to him. Like, what's the commission? Like, if you actually write it on paper, you establish a
Okay, I
business
think we got the
agreement, like,
question. Go ahead,
yeah,
Peter.
there you go.
Yeah, we are working on standardizing such deals, so I can't like name an amount here now. But of course, if anyone brings on a client, we make a deal, and we want anyone to do that who's doing that to profit from it. But I can't like now say this is X% or X amount. We're working on a system like that, and most of the times it happens through partnerships. We do co-creation with large firms that then have a revenue share of the product that we build. So yes, if you have a business that can benefit from MintBlue, bring him on, talk to me personally, and we'll figure out a deal.
Right. And
Okay,
whenever
so
I'm
you're
brokering a
willing.
deal, let me just jump in on that. If I could, because Mac, because it's going to be case by case basis to the provider. So if I have a client that I want to introduce to someone, then I'm gonna strike a deal. I'm gonna negotiate a deal with Peter in writing. I'm gonna say, look, I got somebody that I think is going to be great for this situation, and I want to get X, and I'm gonna bring them to you. Unless I've already got something up front from him, which I wouldn't expect him to do, because this is a huge call, a bunch of people. But like, let's just say in general, if there's a client specific, then you take it to Peter, and you say, look, I got so and so. I will introduce you to a person that's going to could bring you a lot of revenue. I want a percentage of this if you bring him in, and then Peter can negotiate with you and say, yeah, yes or no, and then go from there. That's
Exactly.
And Peter, what's your target audience? Like, what's your target business? Are you looking for like small businesses, mid-sized businesses, like large cap? What's your target?
Yeah,
Where are
for
you
digital
comfortable
product
working?
passports, for tax offices, of course, but I guess that's a bit hard. But for the digital product passports, we're targeting mostly fashion retail brands, the larger ones, but not the largest. Like mid-size to large retail fashion brands, batteries, like where the compliance need is the tightest now. So those companies, then we target in that same thing. We actually mostly sell to digital transformation consultancy firms, So that have a footprint in that sector.
Do
So
you do
IT
you see any
consultancy.
do you see any opportunities in the States? Because I'm located in California. I just want to know.
We really target the European market with
Okay, good
European
to know.
compliance
Good to
requirements.
know.
But
Perfect.
that's not to say that the solution can't work there, but we will not be focusing on doing marketing sales efforts over there. Now, the thing is that MintBlue can
Great.
easily be used to fill in a whole lot of data needs. So if you're familiar with the product, you can basically, in a day, build a proof of concept for any type of data compliance case. So, well, you're free to build it out yourself and to sell it in the States, but we get a focus, and the European compliance market has such a high demand. So we're just replicating the cases here and looking for product market fit in that.
Nice. Thank you. Awesome. Good job. That was
Great.
really, really great. Thank you, Abba Mac. I want to bring up Jeremy. I didn't see he was in the audience too. I'd love to invite him up there, Jeremy, if you can come request. And I want to bring up.
Can I interrupt for
Go ahead, Peter.
1 second?
Yeah.
I'm having lots of fun here, but I'm sad to say I will need to leave because I have an appointment. So I will let you guys do it.
Thank you for joining, Peter. It was great to have you on. I really appreciate your opportunity and the time today and all you do for the space here.
Have a good
Thanks
weekend.
for having me. Yeah, likewise. See you guys.
Nice. Yeah. So I wanted to actually bring up another topic here. If Jeremy, Brett, either of you guys want to jump up, I'd love to ask you about this. And one of which is more targeted to Brett to start with, and that is about, we have a post here from, it was John, not John, but what's the guy's name here? Anyways, he posted, he said, which blockchains will be represented at Davos? And then it says, at Davos 2025, the following blockchains are confirmed to be represented. BSV blockchain. BSV will be featured through a partnership with FT Live, hosting the events like a webinar. And so, I'm just wondering, maybe if Brett can comment on that, because he's part of the BSV Blockchain Association, and maybe he'll be going. Brett, good morning. How you doing?
Hey, good morning. First of all, is my audio okay? I have a different device.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, great. Just want to really quick go back to the previous stuff that that Peter was talking about and Ava was talking about, and then I'll answer that question. I do sales outreach for BSV products, the entire ecosystem. It's one of the roles that I took on sort of voluntarily. You actually can't get me away.
Great.
Try and keep me away from the sales side of BSV. You can't stop me.
Perfect.
But I'm willing to teach this type of stuff too. I'm also willing to jump on any calls. So we could role play. We could say hey, walk me through how you would take a potential enterprise data customer. How do you hook them? What types of email outreach works real well. And let's say that we do like a 2-week kind of walk through, talk through. Here's how I do it. You go now, take your own approach and go out there and chase down some customers, and then you find one. Maybe you want to bring me into a call and just say, hey, we're doing an intro call. We just want to vet this and see, is there a business use case here? I'm happy to do all of that, completely free. This is just my pure passion. My regular day job's time is very full, but I can do this type of stuff at night or on weekends. And then if there are actual business calls that would happen during working hours and stuff like that, I can always prioritize around that. Just wanted to pass that along. That offer is open to you, Abo. It's also open to anyone out there that wants to do this. And if we even wanted to build a little small sales team that was just brainstorming different stuff and sending each other lists of what's working, what's not working, we can do that. I'm happy to help and participate in that process.
Brett, that's wonderful that you say that now. I mean, I appreciate that, and I took it upon myself to actually just go out there in the wild and just spread the word. I mean, without any incentive. I've been doing this for many years, like free, and maybe now we can turn it into some like a good opportunity to have a big client, and we can make something happen. I appreciate it, Brett. Thank you. Maybe even you can work with one. He's he's actually, I don't know if you want to speak on that. Maybe he's also interested. He's really active and speaking to businesses. I just heard.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
I do it. Honestly. I do it just out of my own sort of interest in the field, because it's all well and good at sort of looking at the charts, but I don't think that's where you get the most information from BSV. I think you get the information from BSV from these different deals and these partnerships, and going to the different events, sort of speaking to the people on the ground and hearing them being as excited about the BSV tech as some of the people who aren't directly involved. And yeah, if I see a new business or I hear a new thing, I'm like, well, I wanna find out from the horse's mouth. I want to speak to them, and so yeah, I approach all these different businesses, but I would be very very up for sort of approaching businesses that didn't know about BSV, but I would want to go in there with a full arsenal of knowledge to back that up, rather than just a sort of, hey, have you heard about BSV? It's the real Bitcoin. Sort
Yeah.
of something that's actually going to be presentable to their business and how they can improve and increase their profitability, or whatever the service is. But yeah, it's interesting, very interesting. Thank you.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Brett.
yeah.
So yeah, what else? What else are you up to?
Yeah, so and just to touch on Scott's point, it's not about getting it right the first time. It's about cumulatively getting it wrong, right? And just refining the approach. Because you'll never walk up to, home plate and first pitch hit a home run, right? But you really just want to get in the habit of even just thinking about, enterprise sales and stuff like that. What are they looking for? How do we pitch it in a way that it actually appeals and solves a business need for them? So yeah, I'm happy to
100%.
work through that with you. And then in terms of your question, Gavin, just about the presentation, or the going to the World Economic Forum Davos summit. So yeah, I don't unfortunately have too much information about what's going to be presented there. I know that Richard Baker will be presenting, so that's Tokenovate. I'm really excited about that because obviously Richard Baker, for those that know him and have really heard his pitch and the full scope of the Tokenovate product, it is extremely professional and market ready. Like there's other, like just I mean, another example is MintBlue, right? Like this is not someone who is like drawing an idea on the back of a napkin or something like this. This is a market ready product. Tokenovate is a market ready product going to spread basically the gospel about market efficiencies, saying, hey, you have this specific market need, the velocity of money. But if we take that same concept of what Kurt was talking about, instead of just framing that in terms of just cash as a settlement structure, as a settlement layer, really with the Tokenovate product, it's really about the velocity of the commodification or the tokenization of commodities. And we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Like the solution, this is not just a walk in the park, right? This is not just like, hey, we might just dip our piggy toe in. This is a major global need. They have they have no idea that this solution for the most part even actually exists. People have heard the term blockchain, but there's just so much misunderstanding about that. So for me, that's the thing that I'm most excited about. It's really going out there and representing at Davos, and with the mindset of just like in the 1980s when there was a shift from the paper trading of the stocks on the stock market to the digitalization of this onto these database systems, et cetera. We're talking about orders of magnitude more efficient, orders of magnitude more reach, because we're not just talking about the flow of data and commodification tokens on in a single exchange's ledger or anything like this. We're talking about an interoperable system where that touches things like insurance policies against potential weather situations that can arise out of shipping transiting cargo from one coastline to another coastline, and then you can make real time decisions on your data, on your portfolio. And this is a $1 billion use case. I'm really excited for them to get out there. There's also Alexander Gora, who's going to be speaking there. I think there has been some announcements recently about the emergence of the Terranode group, and I believe that Alexander Gora is working really closely on the identity solution for the Terranode group. So if I can just take a second to paint the use case for what this identity solution is, this really was built out of research and development that nChain has been doing for the past 5-6 years, etc. I had the privilege of working with someone, maybe some of Huge. She was one of the original UX designers for MoneyButton. So if anyone ever had a really great experience with the way that MoneyButton worked, that was probably because of Huge, at least on the front end. She ended up, she married Dr. Owen Vaughn. So if some of you know Dr. Owen Vaughn from nChain, that they got married just about a year ago or so. And she built this identity product through nChain. That's something that Alexander Gora is taking on, and effectively the business use case for this product around identity is targeted towards KYC providers, with the concept that we have 300 different sports books, scattered all across the world in these various different jurisdictions. And I want to go through a KYC process on it with one of them that can be used. I'm presented a digital certificate of my identity so that, I'm permitted to be, able to use this platform. I'm above 21, all of whatever the thresholds of that information layer is. Now, I can then take that tokenized identity certificate and I can, take it to another platform. Instead of going through the entire process, taking my picture, taking the selfie, turning left, turning right, everything that we're accustomed to, now I can just present my digital certificate and say, I can gamble on this site as well. And then the other innovative use cases, now there can be a profit share between the original KYC provider and the place where that KYC, the fees that were saved by having to by using the certificate instead of re-authenticating through the KYC device. So that's a real big use case. And then there is sorry, I just lost my train of thought right there, but that gives you the bulk of what I think will be presented from Alexander Gora's side at Davos.
Sounds like you're going, Brett. Did I hear Brett, or are you?
Unfortunately, I'm not going this time, but I was able to spend, a couple days out in Las Vegas with Alexander.
Okay, cool.
Gora. Yeah. And he's one of my absolute favorite people. I mean, Thomas Giacomo, another one, but this is someone who really understands. He gets it. True blue, and just diehard bleeding Alexander Gora. He's a Polish gentleman he was one of the first 30 employees at nChain. His story is fantastic because he had never even heard of blockchain. He was working for HSBC or some major international global bank or something like this. And one of his mates just, got hired or was looking for someone at nChain, convinced him on the day before he got hired to come over there to take it on. And he has since just completely drank the Kool-Aid. He gets it. He realizes how innovative this system will be. And I remember the other point that I was going to make is that okay, so the one of the unique use cases of this identity platform and what BSV uniquely solves is the ability to have, the rejection of credentials or the revoking of credentials on demand. So, for example, it turns out that somebody in a gambling platform it was determined that they were using some sort of money laundering funds or something like this. These are major problems that these gaming institutions have to solve, and you have the ability to revoke the certificates, at scale and on demand. So it's a real kind of game changer in terms of how that can be, presented to these business use cases, etc.
All right. So it sounds like he's with nChain. That's pretty cool, man. And they'll be there. We're going to have to follow him, and maybe we can do it'd be cool to hear some real time or live updates if there's any way, maybe we could set that up, Scott, if you're aware of, and Brett, of who's going to be there, maybe from this guy Alex, that could keep us posted with what the heck's happening at that event. And so, dude, we got.
I can set that up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's go over to Jeremy, dude. Okay? Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, I know there is some information on FT doing live streams. I'm pretty sure as well on their website. I've actually signed up for all the updates and things, so there might also be some live streams of that via FT website.
Nice. Yeah, I do. I'm
Yep.
absolutely, totally excited about that. And yeah, it'd be cool to have some commentary if it's super. Maybe we could do a space or at least have a live stream, like you said. Dude, so I don't think a lot of people know who Jeremy is. Maybe I know Kurt does, because, but anyways, he's going to be up here. He's up here on stage with us for the first time. And so, what's up, Jeremy?
Hey, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah. What's up? What's up?
You ever heard, Kurt, Kurt, he's the guy from Florida, the small blocker. He pretends that he likes big blocks. You remember that guy? He's laughing. So, Jeremy, what's up, dude?
Yeah, it's pretty good here. Cold weather, and I pretty love the Silicon Valley here.
Nice.
Pretty
Everything.
comfortable. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So it sounds like you've been, listening to everything. I mean, do you have any thoughts? I mean, about Bitcoin at scale and what's happening here with all these, we talked to Peter from MintBlue and, the stuff that's going on. I mean, anything you wanted to share or add?
Yeah, something that I can share is talking about scaling, right? So we need to define the real issue with scaling, right? So what kind of scaling we are looking into? It's just like if there are a decentralized node that they can process as much as a transaction as possible, okay? And the transaction fee is low, and what benefit we can get from it, right? And I think actually it is the market demand of the benefit that surpass the cost of validating, processing all those transactions matters. So we need to not only focus on the capacity and the cost of the massive scaling, but also we need to find the use case that actually can pay for the cost, right? So I've heard some rumors, okay, from elsewhere that parent node, those BSV node, that they can process maybe 1 million per second transaction, but with some kind of ugly ugly I don't know how to say restraints. Yeah. So we really need to think about how to make a very good market, and if market demands, if there is only one node, one BSV node, without all the proof of work, without any redundancy of the node, it is a centralized system with one node that can do, I think, pretty much everything BSV network can do, right? But without the additional cost. How could BSV or the scaling Bitcoin compete with that kind of system? It is cheaper, it has massive scaling. So what's the benefit of using a more expensive but the same functionality of BSV network, right?
So
that's my question.
Which network are you comparing BSV to?
Yeah, the network is like, we can run a node of BSV, right? But without a proof of work. It's just like a centralized controlled node as a centralized server, right? Then BSV should compete with that kind of solution. If there is no actually additional benefit by introducing redundancy and more nodes, right? Then why we will pay more for the redundancy?
Hmm. Okay, I'm a little lost on this one. Kurt, you want to help me out? Are you are you
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think what Mr. Jeremy is sad. I don't know if we're not using his real name for anonymity purposes, so I'll call him Jeremy for now.
Jeremy.
But so yeah, well, I mean, what he's saying is that if the compromise is that we're using a system that is overly centralized, and that is not exactly an exciting thing, and I agree with that premise, but I can say that right now Terranode, it's been tested in distributed consensus on testnet, and it is currently used on, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 endpoints right now that are listening to the network. And then I know Tal mined a block with it a few weeks ago. I think I am not worried about it lacking adoption, and there's a few reasons why. Like it will work from a pool standpoint the same way SV node works. You connect your APIs to Stratum, and you connect your hashing hardware to it, and you're running a pool the same way. So like Stratum and your pool management software, all of that stuff is not going to know what it's connecting to. So the node, the node works just fine, as far as, connecting to proof of work. There doesn't need to be any modification of existing like hashing systems or Stratum. The second thing is that until we're talking about crazy amounts of volume, and I mean literally volumes up in the, hundreds of thousands of transactions per second, which like BSV is nowhere near needing that much kind of, volume right now. It can actually run on cheaper software than SV node is running on. So at Gorilla Pool, like we have tested it running on like Mac Mini level, kind of hardware, and it works just fine. So because the software is so efficient, it actually kind of lowers the threshold of running a node in BSV. So I think it's easier to do. Now that will change as volume comes in. If we suddenly, the average block size is 50 gigabytes, you're going to have like read-write speed problems with your hard drive as like a bottleneck, right? That you'll need a machine that can read and write data very quickly to a hard drive to keep up with, just to keep up with the network, or you'll fall out of sync. So at that point, yeah, there probably will be certainly some consolidation of how many nodes are on the network, but that's a problem, only in theory, and it's not a problem that we've observed. And it's funny because it only becomes a problem if BSV is very successful, at which point that problem becomes a challenge, but that challenge is sort of patched by the fact that there's lots of fees to go around. So if you're profitable, then it allows you to continue to upgrade your hardware and that kind of thing in order to deal with IO speed and hard drive speed, or RAM speed, the kind of things that are problems traditionally in running a Bitcoin node. So so while I agree that the theoretical problems are very real, I think they have been, Terranode has been engineered to make sure that the theoretical problems do not become actual problems.
Jeremy?
Hey?
Well, did you want to respond to Kurt?
Yeah, I would say I would rather focus not on the implementation of the technical side, but also the actual market demand, right? So I have a theory that people don't go to toilet because of free or cheap toilet paper. So if you can have a redundancy, a lot of free toilet paper, right? That does not create actual demand, right? So we think about that situation, what benefit we can get from such massive cheap transactions, and even we can get cheaper alternative by just running one BSV node. So why use the decentralized way of BSV? That is the key question.
And that's a better question. I've said for years, if nobody's going to build a business that creates demand, then yeah, scaling is irrelevant. And so that is a big piece of the puzzle. This is why, like my show, for example, I really only want to have entrepreneurs on. I want to help people bring transactions to the blockchain. So yes, you're absolutely right. But it's like building a highway. You look at the way that the U.S. was planned over the last 100 years. Is that, hey, if you want a city to grow, well, okay, run rails to it, run roads to it, like try to build up its infrastructure, try to incentivize people to want to use a place or a thing. Now, Bitcoin's a weird animal, but yeah.
Sorry, actually, I need to interrupt you. So, for example, the highway in the United States is quite different from the highway in China. Okay, China are building massive of its high-speed transportation, like railways, right? High-speed railways and highways all across China. But okay, that does not lead to the actual development of some rural area, right? So I just don't think it is this very good argument that we can use the highway to represent the BSV right now, because it is not. Maybe this is not only the reason that we build highway. That is because we got interest point first. Then we use highway to connect it to meet the market demand. That is my point.
Yeah.
So we need to find the actual benefit, actual value we can create out of the decentralized system. So my point here is only through decentralization we can achieve kind of privacy control. It is said, yeah, if every transaction is controlled or not controlled by a process by one node, okay, then all your connection information, your port, your IP address is stored in a centralized place, right? That kind of information cannot be hidden and hard to be hidden. But if we can use the decentralized way of different nodes, then we can maybe separate our own transaction, send to different nodes, not to one node, right? So that they can find the relation. The relation between transactions is quite important. Remember the white paper 42, okay, presented by N-Chain? They are trying to hide connections between transactions, even addresses, right? Not reusing addresses. All those things, I think it is privacy control. If we can achieve that kind of privacy control, then, okay, with the traceable nature of Bitcoin, then that is actually the electronic cash that we can use. So, my point here, my claim here is that we need to explore how we can achieve privacy, very good privacy protection for the business. Then if we can have privacy, then we can actually have data ownership, because that kind of data is private, right? You cannot use public data as like, okay, I got the signature, I got the key, then it is my data. No, everyone can use that. It is a public good, right? Public good. But if that kind of private data, that actually is the link between different data points, right? That add another vector based on the data itself. So the vector, the link between different data, is a new data that can be generated from the use of the ledger. We use ledger to bookkeeping everything, bookkeeping every value transaction. But what kind of data is valuable? For example, your credit card spend list, right? So that kind of data is hidden from the other peers. No one can get it, but you can have the full list without the help of a trusted central party, like bank. So you can basically have your transaction list. That is your privacy, but it is protected from the centralized system. For example, one BSV node. You should protect your personal data out of the centralized endpoint, but with a decentralized system that can solve the problem. That is my claim.
Yep, I think that's all really good information, and I think I've gotten a lot of criticism for having an open mind and proximity to other blockchains, and I think the mindset that I come at this with is we need customers, and frankly, everybody needs customers, and so if you're going to think like an entrepreneur, then you have to treat everybody like a potential customer, right? And so that's people that I like, people that I don't like, people who I agree with, people who I disagree with. And ultimately, if all of those people are potential customers, then that becomes a good thing. So I think you're talking about a couple of things. You're talking about liquidity, ultimately liquidity, and just business, like having a place where there's opportunity and economics occurring is going to be the thing that brings in more highways or makes people compete to build the best highway, instead of us saying, hey, we all need to invest in a highway and hopefully business shows up. I think you're right on that point. And part of the way that happens is that BSV is a particularly good tool for scaling and for tokens. Like it is very good at those two things. And so that's a big opportunity because there's like $2-3 trillion worth of liquidity happening on all blockchains cumulatively. Like it just exists out there. And so if you can use BSV, so essentially spin up a node, like a BTC node, just for example, spin up a BTC node and a BTC ordinals indexer in BSV. So use a BSV node as the predicate for running a BTC node and BTC ordinals, and then allow your node to be part of the system, like essentially tokenize BTC on BSV in order to give it more speed, more value, and bring liquidity both directions. Then it starts to become like absorption, right? Like that's how a smaller competitor with a great tool can beat a much bigger competitor, by essentially empowering the bigger competitor until the point where all of a sudden you realize that the best way to compete is for you to just cooperate on everything. And so I think there's a big opportunity there for not bridging exactly, because I'm not talking about bridging in the traditional sense that you would like between Ethereum type blockchains, but more similar to kind of what Dean Little's been talking about recently. About he's been using Solana as a backbone for BTC ordinals and some of these other things too, which is the same idea, right? And actually, I think going that direction allows us not to kill everybody. and I think there's this reminds me a little bit of like Richard Nixon creating the relationship between the US and China, that for the last 100 years there's been this antagonism about whether we want to be enemies or whether we want to be friends as countries. And I think there's a lot of fear both directions because both sides don't trust each other. But what Richard Nixon, I think, very wisely did, and there's consequences. I don't love everything that's come from it. But what Richard Nixon thought is that, if we just become really good trade partners, then we're going to be a lot less likely to want to kill each other. And I think he's right.
Yeah.
I think that's the right way to treat it. So that's how I want to treat it in Bitcoin too. Like that should be our goal.
Dude, I want to just say thank you for what you just really, I'm a huge takeaway from what you guys both, this conversation I just had on a simple level, and that is treating people as a potential customer. So when we have these people of the world that absolutely call us names and hate us, how can that person become a potential customer? Now all of a sudden it's like, how can I make money from that name caller? That hater, right? And it spins the narrative, dude. I think that's brilliant. That's a brilliant narrative. I hadn't even considered that. So thank you for that. Jeremy, before we go back to you, let me go back to this other speaker. We got ARS KSC. Looks like he's a black belt. And Casey had brought him up. So go ahead, my man. Did you want to add anything to the conversation? ARS? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, Kurt mentioned Tether earlier. I just thought maybe he could expand a little bit on what's going on with Tether. I don't want to I don't want to sit here and jabber on. I just had some questions about when Tether gets brought up now. People that are core supporters seem to bring up that they've bought a bunch of treasuries, and that's pretty much all they'll say about it. And like 2019ish or so, it seemed like Tether, BTC, Ripple, and Monero were the big players, and Tether was like because it was pegged against the dollar is the way they were selling it. They wanted it to be popular, but they were really cautious about how it got attention. And anyway, my question has to do with their strategy, maybe with buying treasuries as a means to like basically make it too big to fail, and maybe try to wrap it into something as like a CBDC, kind of like what Coinbase is doing. Any thoughts on that?
Well,
yeah, that's
yeah. Let me just before you
go for
respond, Kurt. So yeah, first of all, with Tether, I love the idea of thinking, as opposed to me just throwing salt on them and saying something negative, how can we make them a customer? I love this, spinning this narrative into a positive. But just before we, premise that, we got to be also mindful that they were indicted by the Attorney General of New York. Okay, they did settle their case and didn't necessarily admit to fault and wrongdoing. It's kind of a stipulation where they paid a bunch of money, a small fine to them, but it was a bunch of money. And so yeah, they were definitely in there. And then there's now continued, still ongoing investigations of them. So while well, I'd like to make them a customer, Kurt, we should be cautious of them as well. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the funny thing is that you can do both too. Like you can be a customer and also have a justice play out. I watched a funny clip yesterday. Was Robert Kennedy Jr. talking about how he was suing Donald Trump like a decade ago over something about Trump trying to build a golf course on land that was supposed to be some kind of preserve or whatever, and Trump was trying to buy his way into being able to build what he wants. And RFK Jr. had and was suing him like to stop it from happening. And that was one of, I think, two instances where they were suing each other. But at the same time, his family was going to ride on Trump's private airplane to from New York to Palm Beach, because they have homes in New York and homes in Palm, like they vacation and live in the same general area. And Robert Kennedy said to his wife, who booked the flight with Donald Trump's wife, said, "Hey, I don't know if we should take that flight. I'm suing Donald right now." And she said, "Oh, I know. He brought it up and said, yeah, whatever. Business is business, but we're still friends." So I think it's funny that when you look at two people who are elite and they both have a confidence about themselves, where like, yeah, our business lives are completely firewalled from our personal lives. And yes, our business interests might need to go to court to work out our problems, but we're not enemies. Like, we don't have to be enemies. We can still be customers and we can still be friends even though our business entities are suing each other. And so I thought that was it's funny, but it's also very instructive on the way that successful people think. And that I'm not going to let a lawsuit, even multiple lawsuits, turn me into somebody that can't create value with another person who's obviously a valuable person to have a relationship with.
Dude, and incredibly mature. It's a mature thinking to have, Kurt, and I love that. I love that thinking, and I always try to encourage it with people. So when you're dealing with these high-level business people, negotiation happens in the courtroom and between the parties. It sucks. Okay, it's just the way it works. All right, so that's where their negotiations happen. If they end up in court, and then they behind the scenes negotiations start happening, and hey, it's people talking to people. At the end of the day.
And so real quick, I put a lot of energy into criticizing Tether. Like it's something I don't think a week has gone by in years where I don't have something critical to say in public about Tether, the company. But to that point, they did create something that is a very useful tool in business. They created something that the market obviously wanted and probably needs, and they've become very successful at it. They're very shrewd business people, and so they deserve credit for essentially making themselves possibly a business that is too big to fail, and they've run their business really, really wisely, such that they have outpaced the law and regulation to the point where they have made themselves possibly untouchable. Like they might be the issuers of the federal digital dollar, because of the way they played their cards. And if that's the case, I think you have to tip your hat to them and say, what, good play, guys. But at the same time, I think we also need to say, okay, like whether or not you are legitimized because you're going to be punished, or if you're legitimized because in order to make the deal happen, you have to come clean about certain malfeasances in the past or whatever else. Like that's all well and good. And ultimately, I think that the Tether people, if they've broken the law or done all kinds of, whatever, some of the stuff that I think they're probably up to, I think that stuff should be aired out. But it doesn't mean that their business model is bad or that they're, any of these things are objectively bad. Now, I don't like fiat currency, I don't like central banking, and I don't like corrupt corporatism. And I think Tether is all three of those things. But at the same time, if they are creating enough value that ultimately you look at it and say, okay, it would be a net bad for us to like close their company, throw everybody in prison and whatever, does that set us back a decade when there are ways to absorb something and make it useful? And an example for this would be Frank Abagnale, the guy from the Catch Me If You Can
Catch Me If
story.
You Can. Great one.
Should he die in prison, or should we learn how a very talented counterfeiter thinks so that we can do better at making things that are difficult to counterfeit, right? And so he ended up, serving, I don't know, 5 years in prison instead of 50, and then working for the FBI for the next 30 or 35 years in teaching how this stuff works and making them a more sophisticated agency. And you could see that kind of thing with Tether, start to emerge. And then to that, making Tether a customer, if something like Tether ends up being good and they want the whole world to use Tether, well, then Tether's going to need a million transactions a second, which automatically turns into, okay, well, let's filter all blockchains for what blockchain could do such a thing. And then all of a sudden we're having a very serious conversation about the BSV people working with the Tether people and working with the US government to create something that can't otherwise be created, that maybe gives all of us a bad taste in our mouth, but is the kind of genie that you already couldn't put back in the bottle. Because again, we didn't do our jobs 10 years ago to make Bitcoin win the way we wanted it to win. And so sometimes, when you're at the negotiating table a decade after your civil war started, everybody's got to make a compromise just to stop the war and move on with our lives and start to make something valuable going forward. And I know that sounds very unpleasant the more puritanical you are about what Bitcoin is and how it needs to work and all these kind of things. But ultimately, it's these kind of deals that create a shaky peace, but peace is always better than war. So that's one of the ways I could see this playing out.
Yeah, love it. Make Tether a customer. Anyone have their hands up? Brett, did you want, or anybody else wanted to join up on stage? Go ahead and take it. Jeremy, go ahead. Yeah, ARS.
Yeah, that like the idea of bringing all the value, okay, onto a payment network, onto a transaction processing network. But indeed, we need to find a unique way of doing that and use that to process every assets, and it should be trustless, right? So no one can stop that. If no one can stop that, and it can eventually replace everyone. But if we are introducing more trusted setup here, then it won't work.
Right. Yeah. So, dude, Brett, Davos, what about this was it World Economic Forum? What is World Economic Forum doing? Aren't they the guys, or no, was it the no, it's the World Health
It is,
Organization.
no, it is. It's the World Economic Forum.
Oh,
Eat the bugs. You
oh, the
will
bug
own
eaters.
nothing, and you will be happy.
Those are the ones that are partnering with BSV? Is that right? Or who's
No,
partnering with BSV?
let me give a little
Please.
clarity on this.
Yeah.
So what actually happened is Financial Times is a global news organization, and they cover every economic event. And they were looking for a Swiss-based blockchain organization that could essentially go with them to be like their sidecar on covering the World Economic Forum from a blockchain standpoint. Well, wouldn't you know it, the BSV Association is quite a well-established Swiss organization that also has a media wing that is based in the country, and so it was pretty easy to get into being a media partner with the Financial Times to do coverage of the World Economic Forum. Now, I covered this a little bit on my Tuesday show because I was asked the same thing, like, Kurt, are we going to eat the bugs? And here's the thing. I personally, I think everything that the World Economic Forum stands for is bad. Okay? I think their vision for the future is everything that we should be against. And were I asked to, have a dinner with Klaus Schwab to discuss Bitcoin, I would probably say yes if it was a one-on-one dinner where we would get to have a conversation back and forth. Because explaining the power of Bitcoin to somebody with a lot of influence, I think, is a net good thing. Now, on the flip side, if I was asked, would Gorilla Pool like to join the World Economic Forum and be a member and part of our charter? And like, the answer would be a hard no. Like, thanks for dinner, Klaus. It was very nice. But sorry, that goes against my values. And I think that there's a big distinction between talking to somebody and, trying to, I would like, and maybe this is my ego talking, but I would like to think that if I were given the opportunity to explain Bitcoin for an hour to anybody, that I think I could ingratiate them to my position on the things that matter about Bitcoin. And and that would be a good thing, because I believe that anybody can change. Anybody can be redeemed. Like, bad ideas only proliferate because good ideas don't take them away. And so talking to people, keeping open lines of communication, education, and all these things, like, those are good. Now, I just want to be clear. I don't know. I wasn't involved in any of this. I like, this was news to me when it became news like a week ago or so. So I don't know what else could be going on in the background or whatever, but I would be against, joining any kind of, anything really to do with the World Economic Forum in an official, like, membership capacity or anything like that. But talking to these people, I think, is a net good. It's always a net good. And it shows confidence too. I'm going to give another political example. We saw, anybody that watched Jimmy Carter's funeral, you watched, all the former presidents and a bunch of really powerful people showed up at Jimmy Carter's funeral. And you can see Republicans and Democrats specifically scowling at each other, not really sitting with each other. Like, they're putting on this show that, well, we're supposed to be enemies, and so we're going to be enemies, right? And the only exception was Donald Trump, who seemed to be trying to make Barack Obama laugh until he did get Barack Obama to laugh. And I found that both really, really humanizing. And these are both people who I, don't trust, don't particularly like, but it showed confidence in that Donald doesn't care what party you're part of. He is going to treat you the way he treats anybody. And the way that he cared to treat him was to try to make him laugh. Like, you know what? We're supposed to be sworn enemies on all these things. Like, your people think I'm evil and my people think you're evil, but I am going to make you laugh, and I'm going to keep talking to you. We're going to be pals because we're sitting together at this thing. And you got to think about the context too, that, like, you're at a funeral, which is, you're supposed to be somber or whatever. And so it really shows that kind of confidence. And I would like to think that any one of us, the BSV people, the people that allegedly know everything about Bitcoin, would say, you know what, 100%, I would talk to the most evil person on earth, frankly, about Bitcoin, and I can teach them something about Bitcoin that might change their mind. And so that's the way I take it. That's how I would look at it if I was asked to give an opinion or asked to go. Like, nobody asked me to go, I'm not going to be there, that kind of thing. But if I was asked to go, like, hey, Kurt, do you want to go have a booth? Do you want to go talk to people? Like, I would go talk to those people. I think there's a big difference between talking to people and joining their cabal. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. If Greg Maxwell was here when he listens to this on the recording, I would say, hey, Greg, how would you like to be a whistleblower for BTC? Let's make a deal.
I would, and since this probably will filter to Greg at some point, I'd like to say the same thing. Like, I disagree with Greg technically. I disagree with his tactics. I don't think he's a nice person or a good person or any of these things, but I would happily have a dinner with him. If it was like, hey man, I'm going to be in town. Like, can we set aside our differences and maybe talk, like, can we just kind of talk about how did we all end up here? It's like, it's the same thing. It's like looking at the signing of the end of World War II. You got like Stalin and Roosevelt and, a bunch, like all these people like sitting at this table who are all, basically enemies, but it's like, okay, look, we don't have to keep killing each other. And, if you can't talk, then the war goes on forever. But I mean, all that to say, I would have coffee or whatever with somebody like Greg Maxwell to sit and talk it out. Be like, look, man, like, I think you're sincere. I'd like you to think that I'm sincere. And we just really fundamentally disagree, but neither of us are just fake. Like, this is something we care about and we disagree in a very big way. But I'd like to think that, hey, for an hour, we can maybe not talk about the things we hate about each other and talk about the things we do agree on, because we probably do agree on a whole lot if we were to focus on the things that we like. And so, yeah. So anyways, I think all of us need to be that way. Like, it's important to be able to create lanes where, hey, we can fight without being enemies, and we can disagree without being evil, and, all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brett.
One of my favorite poems that I encourage people to take a moment out of your day right now, pull it up, is If by Rudyard Kipling. And it's just sort of like, the letter that he's writing to his unborn son, or his son, about how to be a man. And one of the statements that he says is, you can walk with kings and not lose the common touch, and you can, walk with crowds and, hold your head high. But basically, like, I think it's the sort of definition of that, where, you don't allow the circumstances of your surroundings dictate to you what your values are. And if I could just maybe quickly just opine or comment about BSV itself, I think, there's the degree to which, I recognize and understand that sometimes I use overly simplistic conceptualizations to guide me through my day. Like in some ways it could be like, we're fighting for good. Literally, that's what it is. It's good versus evil. But at the end of the day, things aren't necessarily that clear. But they're useful to have these kind of like overarching conceptualizations. And one of my overarching conceptualizations of BSV is that really it is just, allowing the free markets to get out of the free markets way. And that is one of the, the things that I think would be the best resonating message at a place like the World Economic Forum, where, they say, like, we really haven't tried communism yet, or we really haven't tried this yet, but it is kind of true in a sense that we really haven't tried, free markets and capitalism yet, because, at the end of the day, we can have the elements, these loose elements of these ideas, but also, how can it really be these free markets when everything is paywalled and these payment gateways manage and operate everything. Like, even if you're a small business owner, I was talking to a friend of mine who just runs a restaurant. Literally just sells falafel, and and it's a normal business, right? It's not like he has like 30 chains or anything like that, but he has spent to Visa something, he was telling me, like $250,000 over the past 2 years or something like that, just on fees alone. And, that is our best effort at something like capitalism, right? That's in a country like the United States of America, and it's like, we really haven't tried free markets and capitalism yet. It's really, about advocating that message wherever we can be. I think it resonates, especially with countries that they use the example of cell phones, like the more advanced countries were able to build the landlines with the telephone poles and stuff like that. But, the countries that lagged behind, they were able to leapfrog these other technology systems by switching directly to cellular, like Africa and some other nations. So, we have the opportunity to sort of, not only to professionalize our implementation of capitalism by switching to a system like BSV that allows for immutability, data auditability, while also retaining privacy. That's the huge thing, that we really need to stress. This isn't about, building the social credit score system and making sure that we have an eye in the sky. We already have that system, right? Like, we're talking about replacing that system with a system in BSV that the reason for doing it is not because it promotes freedom or because it, advances the goals of liberty. It's literally because it's more economically efficient, it saves money, it's scalable, it does all these things that basically, like, business will eventually adopt it because of those reasons. It just so happens that it also promotes liberty and advances freedom and things like this, but that's the part of the genius of its design. And so, yeah, it's really about bringing that message ideally to these places, and especially to these foreign nations that have the opportunity to say, holy crap, we have been left out of the economic system for so long because we've been deemed unworthy, our markets aren't as good, et cetera. And now we have this opportunity to actually, like Kurt talks about, trade with South Carolina as freely as South Korea. And I think that's a message that I want to advance. Sometimes using these simplistic terms helps me get up in the day, but at the end of the day, that's what we're striving towards.
Nice. I love it. I want to respond to that, but before I do, let me go over to Micah. Micah, hands up. Is it Micah Zico? First time caller. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm good. It's Misha. Yeah, I'm from Germany, so it's Misha.
Misha from Germany. Zico.
Yeah, right, Zico as well. Yeah, that's my alias. Well, I had a few pointers in the discussion about the World Economic Forum, and that is, if you've been looking at Klaus Schwab for the last 6 months, there's some allegations against him that he's sexually abusive against his employees and that he's a racist. And you should really look into this when things like that happen and there's a court case going on against him. In a few days, there will be a court day against him. I think it's in 3 days or something. So if something like that happens and it's a person as influential and as powerful as Kurt Schwab, that can point towards him, that someone tries to have a leadership change in the organization, and that could mean that things for the World Economic Forum go into an entirely different direction at the moment. And the story started, about half a year ago, and what happened was that the Financial Times, no, not the Financial Times, sorry, that's the BSV partner. It was the Wall Street Journal. They had 80 journalists working on this story, and 80 journalists, that's 80, they then they really wanted to find shit on this guy. And it's, yeah, the Wall Street Journal is also has ties to Rupert Murdoch and the and BlackRock, I think, as well. So there's really something going on behind the scenes. And when I read that BSV blockchain will be presenting there, that yeah, I think a lot of us were surprised. But who knows what's going on behind the scenes? So I just wanted to point to this interesting information that I found.
Yeah, and I just saw it on your post 2 hours ago, and I just sent it to Casey to share. So it says Digital Currency Governance Centurium Phase 1 World Economic Forum. Did you want to comment on that?
Right. Yeah, they've been looking into CBDCs for some time, the creation of CBDCs, and that shouldn't surprise no one. I mean, it's often criticized as a means of controlling people and replacing cash that is less controllable with, yeah, a more controllable solution. And yeah, it's interesting because BSV is, as far as I know, the only blockchain, the only cryptocurrency, not cryptocurrency, digital currency that will be presenting at the World Economic Forum. So yeah, a lot of interesting things. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, definitely. So they'll be the only one presenting. So that sounds good. So yeah, I sent it to you, Casey, if you want to share it. Let's see, Jeremy, what else? Anything else? I see Ralph's in the crowd. What's up, dude? If you want to come up here, or anybody else wants to jump up here as we have anything else on the agenda before we start winding down? Miss Casey Nicole. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Jeremy, what's up, dude?
Yeah, not particular.
Nothing particular? Just living the dream? Living the dream. Well, when can I start talking about the real Jeremy?
No, don't talk about that.
I won't. Of course not. I won't. Okay, let's see. Who's that? Who wants to request up, Casey? Any comments, questions? Was it rap?
I just let J Paps up.
J Paps, what's up, dude? Come on up.
Hey, how you doing? Good, great space, guys. Yeah, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents there. I guess a little bit of can't really call it gossip, but you can call it I guess, I don't know, news of some kind. If you guys got Grok on your X, feel free to try this. You know that if you ask who's going to be attending, which blockchains are attending Davos 2025, BSV never comes up. You have to I actually made a post about it. You actually have to specifically ask why BSV is not mentioned, or is BSV going to be there? If you don't mention BSV, it's not going to come up as an answer.
I see. Does anybody else come up?
Yeah, XRP, all kinds came up there. But BSV, and as soon as you mention BSV, you get an answer of like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we overlooked it. I didn't mean to give you faulty information." And then you wait 5 minutes, you try again, and it's the same shit. So, just FYI, anybody in the audience that thinks Elon is your buddy, think again.
Suppressing BSV, huh? So are you saying
Oh,
that
absolutely.
I'm being shadow banned, like the evil said?
I mean, if you look at the known cap table of X, and it's Jack Dorsey is still a major shareholder, and the primary funds that were raised to acquire Twitter came from Binance. So yeah, Elon, I don't think, frankly, I don't think anybody should assume Elon is their friend. Elon is a vicious capitalist, first of all. And second of all, I don't think he's an ally to BSV in any regard. And frankly, I think his whole foray into the blockchain space is entirely based on memeology and all of that. Like he doesn't care about anything but Elon Musk as far as I'm concerned. So, and that's if you treat him the way that he's, like he can be a valuable person in all kinds of regards, but don't assume it's altruistic or that he's your friend or anything like that.
Well, what is it that CSW has said at the end of the day? I mean, BSV is going to win because we'll just crush everyone economically. As much as you hate or he hates or anybody will hate BSV, I mean, Kurt, just imagine your power supplier, whoever that is. Just imagine.
J Paps, you went on mute.
I think we lost you. Yeah.
We're going to give it to you for 3 kilowatt
Yeah, you're
hour.
breaking
As
up,
much
J
as
Paps.
you hate this guy to you at your, you're going to 3 cents. Right?
J Paps, can you drop back down and come back up, please? We're missing every word that you're saying.
I just, I think it's very clear. As for, will BSV crush everybody? I don't know. I think there's a few versions of reality where, there's a king blockchain that ultimately makes its way out. BTC right now is not on a path to do that. Like if you zoom way out and you look at the economics of the system, the way that all of these systems are designed is that they have an economic security model. Now, BSV is the only blockchain that has a viable security model going forward. Our big problem is volume, customers, right? Like who's using BSV? The answer, statistically, it's basically nobody. But we have the model. We understand that the model of Bitcoin's security and viability is to scale and then have economic security based on lots and lots of volume going forward. Now, BTC, I don't think they can cross that bridge, which is why they're talking about every other bridge. You got Peter Todd talking about adding tail emission inflation, or you got people talking about, all these other ways to subsidize BTC to make sure BTC grows forever, right? But that's because it is broken economically. And ultimately, that is a problem that needs to be solved. I don't know that BSV can solve it, but what I do know, the fact is that if any blockchain is to succeed, it will have to look like the success of BSV's roadmap, meaning lots and lots of customers making lots and lots of transactions and creating a recursive economy in the network that makes it self-supporting and growing because of its internal economy. And so far, no blockchain is doing that sufficiently, but BSV is the only one that has the model now. If we fail and somebody else wins, they will win because they made their blockchain look like BSV's roadmap. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, sorry, I got dropped off earlier. I don't know if you answered my question or if you even heard it.
No, we didn't hear it. Go ahead and start from scratch. You.
Oh.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you. So go ahead and start your question.
Well, look, before that, I have a question actually for Kurt, because you mentioned earlier, Kurt, about BTC using Solana and whatnot. Look, from what I know about Solana, and most of it is kind of from you, it is infringing on some patents from BSV, is it not? And if it is, why is this continuing to go on like this? Why is this allowed? Why is this continuing to be allowed to be infringed upon?
Well, let me comment first, Kurt, before you do. I had this conversation with Jeremy here recently, and we were just like, yeah, I mean, either N-Chain is a patent troll and they're going to start suing people because of the patent infringements, or they're a business builder and a business opportunity maker. And so that's really, it's a good question, J Paps. Why not? Well, there's got to be a reason, but I don't have the answer. Maybe Kurt does.
If I may, Gavin, I've heard you refer to N-Chain being a patent troll. I don't believe that is an accurate an accurate statement.
Okay.
Is a patent troll not someone who basically purchases a patent or has a patent, basically patents something that they clearly have not invented, and then just sits on it waiting to sue? I mean, N-Chain is not a patent troll.
No, you're
N-Chain
right.
has done the R&D.
Yeah,
right?
no, I think that's probably a meme description of it, and I think a better, more accurate description is that is nChain going to be a company that's going to sue and enforce its patents, or
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
nothing wrong with that at all. Absolutely, I mean it's a totally great
Okay.
position to take, and I would 100% support it. Or is it going to be a company that's going to sit back and build something in competition? And open source its patents. So that's kind of just we don't know.
Well, let's not forget, open source doesn't mean you're getting it for free. That doesn't mean you can get it and you can do what you want with it, right? It means you have to follow, you have to play by the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let it be open source then.
Yeah.
Kurt, that was for you. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from my position, I've not seen nChain do much of anything. I mean, they hire groups of people and they fire groups of people, and they shuffle the cap table, and they shuffle the the employees, and they're doing whatever they're doing, and ultimately they're a black box, and I don't know that anyone that is not inside of nChain can comment on what nChain's strategy is about anything, frankly. I mean, I've been here a long time and I still can't tell. So as far as that's concerned, yeah, I don't know. Like what, so why have thousands of patents or hundreds of patents that are duplicated in half a dozen jurisdictions if you're not going to enforce them? Seems weird, especially because some of them are getting to be quite old now. It's not like there's not a lot of money out there. Like you probably could sue the Ethereum Foundation and some of these other things and potentially win. But the fact that they're not doing it, I don't know. I don't know what that says. And then on top of that, the fact that they don't seem to have wanted to commercialize their own products or anything either. Like,
just finish it. Hold on.
Again, I don't know. Like nChain is a very enigmatic entity that I still can't figure out.
Up?
Now, they just announced a whole new thing. They've got a new CEO. They have rebranded the company. Like the company is no longer called nChain. It seems like they're calling themselves the Terranode Group and coming out swinging with this whole new thing. So new guy, seems like an Italian American guy with a career in tech with a focus on business development. Now that gives me hope for two reasons. I think American CEOs really, really want to win by kicking everybody's ass. Now, like, you can say what you want about Americans, but every American, at least a little bit, thinks they're a cowboy. And that's an attitude that I think nChain has needed for a long time. Now, I don't want to take anything. I've actually quite liked a number of the CEOs at nChain, but if we're talking about European guys and British guys and whatever, their attitude about business is not a growth mindset or a disruption mindset. Their mindset is much more about, hey, I'm gonna work my network. I'm gonna lean on my old relationships. The old money's gonna come my way because I'm the right guy in the right place, and that's just much more how the Eurozone works from a business standpoint. I just don't think that works for BSV because we are 100% an underdog.
Yeah.
Now, if there is any group of people on Earth who have a real big view of themselves and think that they can come into any underdog fight and win because that's an American. And so to have an American CEO who understands tech, who understands, like, his background, includes stuff like distributed compute and edge computing, all these other things, and like both at big companies and at startups, like, cool. Seems like on paper he could be the guy that stirs the pot in the way that we need, and I would be bullish on that idea. As for, will that be the case? We'll know in a year or two if he's successful. So, but yeah, as far as, what they have done or should be doing, or with the patents and all this stuff, like, who knows? I don't get it. I may never get it. And, maybe we don't have to talk about it in a year from now because nChain's got like 10 really big clients because, there was finally an American at the wheel. So yeah. The Patriot in me is bullish, but we'll see how it plays out.
John Pitts.
Yeah, he's a Miami guy too.
Even better.
Jack Pitts, nChain CEO. Go ahead, JPaps.
Question for you, Kurt. Right now, let's assume you're paying in the neighborhood of, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 cents a kilowatt hour for your power. If you got a knock on the door from a sales rep from ABC company and they offered you power at 3 to 4 cents a kilowatt hour, would you make that handshake?
I get probably 2 or 3 people a month that offer me anywhere between 3 cents and free power because they've invented perpetual energy. I get these people all the time, and we vet the ones that seem credible, and so far almost none of them are credible enough, or the risk is too big. Like, we get all kinds of people who are like, hey, like, my uncle owns a dam in South America. You can get power at 2 cents a kilowatt hour. And it's like, yeah, but are we, am I going to get killed by, killed by gorillas and,
Well,
hell, like, whatever.
Assuming the power would be reliable.
Assuming all of it's legit, yes, I would make that deal.
Okay. That was my earlier point. This is how BSV will win then. Craig will crush them economically. Period. This is this is the only way BSV will win, and that's the only way BSV should win. We should not be winning a popularity contest.
I agree.
And on that note, guys, great space.
Thank you, J Paps.
Happy Friday.
Okay, I want to just start to trying to wind it down, but let me make a also kind of put something out there into the universe or the space Twitterverse, Xverse for next Friday. It looks like the 20th through the 24th is that forum, and BSV is going to be there with Klaus Schwab, and they're going to be rubbing elbows and having their event. But I'm thinking Friday of next week, potentially, I'd like to put it out there into the verse here about doing a space with Liz and Kurt, if you're available. I've reached out to her. She hasn't got back to me about it yet, but potentially maybe we could do that on Friday at the same time. So I'd love to. I've been wanting to do that.
Count me in.
Yeah.
Any Friday that I'm free, I'm happy to spend with Gavin and friends.
All right. So potentially Friday, when the World Economic Forum is having their bugs with the event, we could do the space with Liz. I'm sure she would love to talk smack about those people over there. So, yeah. All right. So, closing thoughts. Let's do it. Miss Casey Nicole, why don't we start with you?
Well, quick question for Kurt. Can we get an update on Tonic Pow by chance? I was just sharing the CoinGeek article about the Terranode group, and I really missed that platform and Luke. So just curious if you have any information on that.
So it's funny. Luke and I work together on a whole bunch of stuff, and he's obviously been focused on like one-sat ordinals and a bunch of these things. And we keep trying to bring Tonic Pow back up because all of us miss it, including him. And we're trying to figure out. So there's a couple things. He has an old business partner who still has equity in the thing, and then there's a couple issues about how to resurrect it that include sort of business negotiation stuff. So that's a little bit of a blocker on putting any work into it. But yeah, no, I think Tonic Pow is one of the coolest companies that ever came out of BSV. It still technically is operating, but it's, if you haven't been pre-approved and all this stuff, if you aren't set up as like a super user by the time it went dormant, then it doesn't work for you anymore. And so it's really unfortunate, and everybody kind of agrees, but I can tell you that everybody involved wants to resurrect it, but there's a couple of blockers that are trying to get cleared up, and I'm trying to help on that front, but some of it's a little bit out of my hands and stuff too. But I'm a huge advocate. Like, Tonic Pow is one of my favorite companies, so I really hope it gets worked out amicably. And I tend to think that it will. It's not that nobody's being super resistant. It's just kind of like everybody involved has a lot of other stuff going on, and it's been difficult to add it to the priority stack with everything else going on. So
okay, well, thank you so much. I was just curious because I see you still use Tonic Pow links when you share some stuff, so I know that even if CoinGeek doesn't have an active campaign, those links will be retroactive when they do if people click on them, right?
Yes, yeah, and that's because I was a pre-approved user, like whatever it was 2 years ago when the development went on pause. So
Yeah, I can still get in and post a link, but CoinGeek doesn't have it monetized right now, so
right.
you can earn. But anyways, I
Yep.
appreciate the update and look forward to talking smack about the WEF with all you guys again soon.
Yeah,
Thank you,
potentially
Gavin, and everyone. Great day. Happy Friday.
Liz Crokin next Friday. That's the plan. I mean, that's the goal, not confirmed, but
You want to go
goal.
around the horn, Kurt?
Yeah, I'd say let me go over to
Sure,
Jeremy.
I'll take it. Yeah, wow, I can't believe it's already 2:30 Eastern. So hey, happy Friday, everybody. Just be good to each other. Get out there and build a business. Like it's fun to have these group chats, group therapy sessions, and whatever else we're up to. But ultimately, we are not going to win because we suddenly got popular. Like, we will only win if we actually solve people's real business problems. And so I know that's easier said than done. It just feels like one more, like, yeah, man, just put in a lot more work and maybe it'll all work out. But unfortunately, that's how your bread gets buttered, everybody. You gotta milk the cow, you gotta churn the butter, you gotta harvest the wheat, you gotta bake the bread, and then you got buttered toast. So nobody's gonna do it for us, though. So I'm trying to do that by example. I put a lot of sweat equity and a lot of like actual money into the businesses that I'm operating for the sake of making BSV as attractive as I can possibly make it. And a lot of other people on here are too. Like, I'm not saying people aren't doing that. I'm just saying we need a couple things to really hit, and when they hit, they'll hit big. So we really do have a very special thing here, and it's cool while it's for the cool kids, but I think we've been the small cool kids club for long enough. I'm looking forward to changing the world and sending this thing global. So let's do it.
Yeah, let's change the world, baby. Over to you, Jeremy. Closing thoughts.
What?
Closing thoughts.
Yeah, nothing particular.
All right, come back again. Let's do it. We'll do a space with you again, and we'll talk about tokens. So what's up, Brett? Closing thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just wanted to circle back to what I was talking about before about, letting the free market get out of the free market's way. One thing, sometimes I use the analogy of dogs or something like that. Like, if you abuse a dog, if you whip it and and kick it and stuff like this, that dog is going to be aggressive. And and it sort of works the same way as abusers do, like in terms of, like sexual abusers or dominating people. It's the people who've been abused that end up going on to become abusers. And so if we think about that and protract it out to humanity, and as humanity is enslaved, by these systems, these centralized systems, dominator systems, etc. A lot of the instinct is that you want to get out of that system. And as soon as you get out of that system, the first instinct you have is to enslave the people around you, right? Because that's the model, sort of like monkey see, monkey do. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up is just to say that what is the point of the free market, right? It's not like the free market is some like magic pill or something like that just comes along and says, oh, all of your problems are immediately solved and cured just because we've opened up trade. It's really that I was thinking of the metaphor of just a mirror. The free market just is a mirror of ourselves to ourselves, right? And so if we're manipulative and bastards, and we have this open trade policies, we're just going to be openly manipulative, right? And openly bastards. But it's also in a sense, it also carries with it this idea but we can also use that to break the cycle of abuse and of enslavement and domination, right? That we really don't know what as humans we're capable of in some ways. That's the real reason why I'm such an advocate for this, is because it actually brings us. It's a road that delivers us to ourselves, and it actually says, hey, you have free will in this world. You have agency. You can decide that you want to go and be be a dick to your neighbor, like the neighbor right across the street. I can go pick up a rock and chuck it at his window right now. I can do that, and that's part of the value of a free and agentic system, is that, it's yes, I have that capability, but also the mere fact that I have that makes me aware of how my actions impact those around me, and it gives me a greater onus and responsibility to be that, as they say, the change that I wish to see in the world. That's something that I think we can all take to heart. It starts with ourselves. If we want to see this world into existence, be examples of that world. And yeah, those are my closing thoughts. Thanks so much for having me on, Gavin, and thank you to everyone.
You're welcome, dude. What words of wisdom, my man. I love it. We're gonna do closing thoughts. I'll bring up Bose if you want to add something, Bose, in closing thoughts. Great to hear from you, buddy. We're just gonna bring you up here at the end. But before we do that, let me give Scott the floor and let you do closing thoughts, Scott. If it's not too late where you're at. I don't know if you're still. Yeah. Okay, you're there. Yeah.
Still here. Yeah, just want to say thank you to everyone as always. I probably won't be able to attend the next Friday because I do have a prior engagement on Friday. But yeah, just like what I echo what everybody else has said. It takes many different moving parts for BSV to work. I think it takes developers. I think it takes business. I think it takes, the peer-to-peer side of things. It takes everyone. And it doesn't matter whether you're just selling socks or you're creating the next, billion text a day business. I think every part plays its part. So yeah, just supporting, sharing different articles, coming up with, messaging different businesses, saying, hey, have you heard about BSV? And even just letting people know and the story of, what the real Bitcoin should be and how it works. I think all of this is just as important. So yeah, just find your way to help out and, keep doing what we're all doing.
Right on, dude. Let's do it. All right, sounds good. Well, then we'll end it there. Thank everyone for joining in. Hit the retweet, likes, leave a comment, and if you're watching on the recording here, definitely subscribe. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time, potentially next Friday with Liz Crokin. That's my goal here. We can talk all about the World Economic Forum and the Davos Summit. Potentially that'll be winding down at that time, and give her thoughts as well. So, all right, we'll see you guys at the top. All right, later. I'm going to end it.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.